Howdy. Well, we've gotten to the finals. I know those of you that are here competing have been waiting for this, and we're excited for you to get to this point. Congratulations already. It means you guys are in the money. But I also want to remind everybody here that just because you didn't get in the finals, just because one of these companies didn't make it in the finals, doesn't mean their show is over or their opportunity for awards is over. Actually, it's just beginning for them. They're going to be participating in an elevator pitch competition, and they also are eligible for considerable side prizes from our sponsors. And that selection process is ongoing based on how you do in the elevator pitch competition. And of course, the finalists are eligible for those as well. And those judges will be watching how you perform in the finals as part of that. So for those I haven't met yet, and for those joining us online, I'm Chris Scotti. I'm the chair of the competition. I've met almost everybody here already, and I just want to kind of tell you where we're at this culmination of a fairly long process. This process really starts back in February with incubators and accelerators and other research institutions introducing and referring their top companies into the top of this funnel. They're referring in applicants. It was around 80 this year, which is about on par for us. But what I want to make sure you're clear about is the inputs at the top of this funnel. It's not just necessarily random companies from across the state. Many of you competitors were referred in by some institution or an entrepreneurial support organization. And honestly, if you made it this far in the competition, my bet is you were very engaged with that entrepreneurial support organization, and it helped you get to this point in the competition. Then we go through a screening process that puts at least 4 or 5 folks virtually looking at your application, at those competitor applications. That involves a graduate student in a related field, a PhD level faculty researcher in a related field. So think a biomedical engineer is looking at a biomedical device, doing some technical due diligence. We stick an IP expert on there. Thank you to all of you IP screeners from the Texas A&M Innovation Office that helped with that piece. And then we also stick a business person or investor. All right. They all rank those in 9 or 10 different areas. We average those out, and then we get together and talk about the ones that are on the bubble. We actually have those different experts, those screeners, talk to each other and decide, you know, maybe the IP is better than I thought or is not as good as I thought, and the business person might change their score a little bit based on what they learned from the IP screener. So they're sharing expertise. And you might ask why we do that. How do you keep that fair? Well, the reality is when you're pitching to an angel network or you're pitching to a group of investors of any type, they're talking to each other, sharing their expertise with each other. And it is very much a collaboration of minds at that point to even decide what the ranking of those companies are. So we end up out of that process with 20 companies, all right? 16 semifinalists plus 4 alternates. Unfortunately, this year, one of our alternates, Bike Trail, ended up having to duck out due to a pretty serious illness. So they send their regrets they couldn't be here. So we're going to see 16 companies plus 3 alternates today. Once we've selected those companies, they go through a final check that another gentleman, Daniel Odenwelder from our office, actually went and looked at the corporate standing of all those companies and make sure that they have proper licenses on the intellectual property from their institution. Finally, we go through a coaching process with these companies to help them get familiar with our particular competition. A lot of the competitions these guys have gone through before, it's all about the show, it's all about the pitch. Ours is very different in that our judges are actually looking at this like they might be investing in that company. So they are considering things like return on investment, what's the team, what does the intellectual property look like, what's their long-term strategy. It's a lot more than just the showy presenter at the front of the room that gets the audience engaged. It's really the potential for return on investment, or the term I use that is not in the dictionary, investability. And that brings us to now, the finals judging process. We went through 2 rounds this morning of semifinals, very similar in format to this, but in private rooms just over here. And I will say a thank you at this point to all of our judges. If you would stand up if you judged this morning. All right. And we want to give you a quick recognition for volunteering your full day. These guys looked at the due diligence, dug into the background on these companies, and came and ranked them this morning, which led up to the process where we have 6 companies that are going to be pitching to you today. Oh, lost my place. Sorry. That's all right. So now I want to take just a minute to introduce somebody that has really made this competition possible and allowed us to grow and change. This is some gentleman that some of you met, my boss, Pete O'Neill, and I'd like to invite him up real quick just to say a few words on behalf of our office and tell you why Texas A&M University System and Texas A&M Innovation support this competition and the statewide entrepreneurial ecosystem.
Thank you. Pleased to be here. Thank you all for being here. So why do we support this? I think this is the kind of thing a leading institution does. We don't have a lot of Texas A&M companies in here, and that's just fine. I think it's our job to nurture more of our own intellectual property companies to be at this level. But as a leader in supporting innovation, to supporting entrepreneurship around the state, hosting this kind of event with only the aspirations of growing the prize pool, attracting even stronger companies, is exactly what we want to do on behalf of Texas A&M and the state of Texas. So I'm not sure I covered everything you were expecting me to cover, but
I'll clean up.
And I might say something later. We observed it at lunch and throughout the entire time. Some really genuinely engaging discussions happening all over the place. And thank you all for that. I will probably say this again later as a reminder. So on this stage a year ago, I was still fairly new. And I said, I want to support more of this. And so since this event last year, we've initiated a couple different tracks of things. One of them we call our Innovation U. One of them we call Innovation Connect. These are each specifically to promote more of this kind of conversation. Since last year, we've engaged more than 1,000 different human beings in that kind of work. And so please put this event on your calendar for next year, but please also think about engaging with us throughout the year. And we will be reaching out to you, engaging with you, but hopefully you find this of value. If you don't, I want to know about it so we can make it more of value. And even if it is of value, how can we make it better? But this is one event throughout the year of us engaging, growing, cultivating, doing what we can as a leader to do more. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Pete. And I'm going to say a quick thank you to the Texas A&M system for supporting this as well. When this competition was actually first envisioned about 10 years ago, we actually originally thought about doing this at the system level. It makes sense because this competition has a statewide reach, and the Texas A&M system has a statewide reach. 11 universities across the state, several of which are represented here today, and you'll hear from them as we award the prizes later, right? So it's awesome to be back at the system level where it was originally envisioned to be. And the Texas A&M system puts in a substantial amount of money, not just covering my time and the staff, but also they're the largest contributor to the cash prize pool that we're going to be giving out to the semifinalists, or to the finalists and to the elevator pitch winners. at the end of the day today. So one other thing I wanted to let you guys know, my role doesn't stop at TNVC. I know that's how I engage with many of you, and that you see me once a year and deal with the bazillion emails from our office around getting you engaged. But I also want to let you know that an important part of my role as Director of Strategic Partnerships for Texas A&M Innovation is reaching out across the state and building an ecosystem that supports spin-outs of Texas A&M and its various institutions. So that means building partnerships with investors like yourselves, entrepreneurial support organizations like the accelerators and incubators, as well as the other research institutions in the state, to make sure that the expertise that spin-out company might need is easily accessible and helps them get across the finish line, whether it's coming back and competing in a competition like this, pitching at an investment network that you might be involved in, or getting involved in an accelerator incubator program in your area. It truly is not limited to Bryan College Station. We love our local spin-out companies, but this is a statewide effort. I'd love, if you are interested in getting involved beyond TNVC, Pete or I or any of the staff for our office would be thrilled to chat with you about what that might look like, getting engaged with our other events and in the pipeline of technologies that we're commercializing out of the Texas A&M system. So back to TNVC. The alignment's pretty obvious to us why Texas A&M hosts this, all right? We feel strongly that there needs to be a good ecosystem of all those different partners and stakeholders that I just talked about that can support our own spin-out companies and build an ecosystem that can compete with some of the ones that maybe you know about from one coast or the other. This is just one piece of that. So the alignment with TNVC is obvious. But we couldn't do it without some support for our sponsors. So I'm going to say a quick thank you to a few of our sponsors. You'll hear a lot more from them as we get into the award ceremony, but I want to call out two in particular, our platinum sponsors this year. To be a platinum sponsor, we're talking value in excess of $25,000. These guys are way beyond that, all right? Capital Factory, second year they've offered a significant prize that you'll hear Luis Martinez wave. Luis, you in here? There you are, yes. Right down in front, who's also a finals judge. The deck just changed, there we go. So Capital Factory is an important partner, not only to TNVC, but also to many of the things that we do in our office in support of our spin-outs. And I also want to recognize a really new partner that you as judges and competitors, you guys have gotten to chat with a lot, PitchFact. And this is an important partner for us. They're a preferred partner for doing due diligence this year. Many of you know we've done due diligence on the companies in the past and handed that out to our judges, all right? This year we took it to the next level through the partnership with PitchFact, where we had them do their standard interview process that they do for other angel investing networks across the state. They went and interviewed each of these companies, dug in deep, looked at their market, and then worked with our office to do an IP analysis as well that the judges saw in the due diligence packets that they were given before today. We also provided that to our prize sponsors as well. So I want to say a huge thank you to Capital Factory and PitchFact for even making this possible. So guys, thank you. Andrew, I'm looking for you to point you out. Are you in here? Oh, he must be cleaning up his booth next door. If you get a chance, you see Andrew Caslow, have a chat with him and thank him. Same with Luis Martinez. Please say thank you to them. And of course, to the rest of our sponsors as well. A special one that I want to tell you about, we've been doing this since 2022. It's the Winner's Circle Legacy Prize. And it's a special prize born out of a desire of our past TNVC winners to give back. It wasn't my idea, all right? We actually had one of our past winners, many you know, Dan Powell from Spark Biomedical. You in here, Dan? Well, tell him I showed him some. Oh, there you are, Dan. This was his idea. He came back, he's like, I want to give something back. We've been really successful, and a big part of that success was TNVC. We want to give something back. Out of that original idea and his sponsorship in the first year was born this prize that we open up to all past winners of TNVC. 60 companies, you're talking about 10 years. Well, we'll be 60 after this year. They all donate an amount, at least $1,000, that we pool up and then let those past winners select who they give it to. As you can tell, I'm smiling. I'm especially proud of this prize because it really speaks to the impact of TNVC, that these folks would give back to this and to support the next generation of innovators and entrepreneurs like themselves. So quick thank you to the Winner Circle folks. Some are here, some are watching online. You'll hear about their awardee here in the award ceremony shortly. So, of course, I also want to say a big thank you to all of our gold sponsors. Many of these folks you're going to hear from in an individual way as we go into the award ceremony. I invite them up to give away their own prizes, of course. They'll tell you about their organization. And then the few that aren't doing prizes will come up and announce one of the cash prizes. So you'll get to hear a little more about each of these folks. But please do, if you see somebody with a sponsor badge, thank them, especially if you're a competitor. That's what made this possible, is going to end up contributing that money that you're hopefully taking home today. So those of you that have been here since yesterday have heard us talk about this way too much. I'm just going to put it up on the screen one more time. If you have not downloaded the app, especially those of you that are just joining us here and online, take a minute now to go download the Texas A&M Innovation app. You'll sign into it with your same email and password you set up when you registered for the event as a whole. This is important during this session, especially so that you can vote in the elevator pitch competition. I'm sorry, finals judge, y'all are going to be in the secret deliberation. By the time we get into elevators pitch, you get done quick, you can come back and hear the last few. But for the rest of you in the room, you're deciding who's winning that, and we would love for you to contribute that way. During the finals that you hear in a moment, you can also submit questions, and we'll be putting a link up on the screen where you can submit your questions. You see this hashtag a lot. We would ask, if you do social media posts, if you do them of your own, use this hashtag on any of our platforms, on any platform. Certainly share any of the posts that we put up. The more that you do that, the more viral this whole competition will get, the more exposure that our competitors will get, and the different programs that we support. It's what really makes this thing successful and known statewide so that it can continue. So please do use that hashtag as you share things online. Love for you to take pictures. We're going to have some photo ops toward the end of the award ceremony, but if you take pics and post them online, which we'd love you to do, use that hashtag as well. So now I want to tell you a little bit about why we do this and some numbers that we take away from this competition. You've probably heard a few of us mention, this is our 10th year of TNVC. We started this back in 2015. It's a much smaller event then, much smaller prize pool. But one of the things we started very early on is tracking the companies that went through this process, that long funnel of a process I showed you earlier, tracking the characteristics of those companies so that we could glean information from that we could turn around and share with you, the innovators of tomorrow, so that you can learn from the characteristics of the most successful companies that have gone through this. And I want to share the updated numbers of that for 2024, but this is across all 10 years of the competition. Overall, we've given $3.5 million in prizes out across the 10 years of competition, across the 9 years. After today, it'll be close to $4 million. The companies that have participated have gone on to raise over $571 million. And that's just what we know about, what's publicly reported, right? Or what the past competitors report back to us in our annual survey. That's up 70 million from last year. This is one of the coolest stats when you get these percentages. We know that 87% of our semifinalists are still in business. And then 96% of our finalists are still in business or have successfully exited. Many of you probably have heard of the 80-20 rule, where about 80% of the companies have gone out of business by their third year. This is in direct contradiction of that. We know that this process that we have through TNVC, through the help of many of you judges and sponsors here, this selection process not only helps identify the top performers in the state, It gives them the tools that they need to succeed, and that results in those two numbers you see there. 96% of the companies across 10 years are still in business and thriving today. So a little about the investor perspective, because remember, this is modeled after investment pitches and angel networks in particular. So investors play a big part of this, both as judges and as sponsors. We know that all of our semifinalists put together, as best as we can track, exceed a 10x return in terms of their valuation increase over the years after 3 years, all right? We also know that the first 4 years competitors, all right, many of which are exiting or close to it, have given in excess of 15x. All right, so if you think about the ones that have been around the longest, those are given in excess of 15x returns. We've had 5 successful exits to date. So these companies have actually exited. We can't even track them any longer because now they're sort of part of some big organization. So we stopped tracking at that point, but we know that that was a successful outcome for that company. Now, quickly about research, just because I know, I mean, we're here at Texas A&M, and this is important to our side. Many of the technologies in the companies today came out of a research institution. One of the cool things is that these companies have gotten $61 million in grant funds, much of it geared towards researchers and science and engineering-based technologies. That's come in the form of SBIR grants and other grants, particularly for these startups, helping them get off the ground and supplementing the investment funds that they get. Nearly 11 million of the funds these companies have raised comes back to research institutions like Texas A&M in the form of sponsored research, helping with the support the next generation of researchers and innovations. And finally, we only track this for Texas A&M right now, but we know that a minimum of 1.3 million has come back in the form of royalties and license fees, supporting my office and again the next generation of researchers in science and engineering-based technologies. So it shows the amazing potential not only for our institution, but for investors and sponsors, and for the future competitors in TNVC. So we also try to leave something for you, the entrepreneurs. And this is something I'd like you to take away and to share with your ecosystems as well. We try really hard to make sure that our entrepreneurs walk away from this, even if they didn't end up winning, with valuable feedback and information, and in this case, data that will help them to make decisions about the trajectory of their country and their future pitches. We provide them feedback at every stage of the process, and this is no exception. All of our semifinalists, like has happened in as many years as we've tracked this, all of our semifinalists have diverse teams behind them. And by diverse, I'm talking about business people, technology experts, folks that have experience in industry, not just in the lab. That is a characteristic that most, if not all of our companies over the years have as a characteristic. That's something I think many of you, and you heard it in the panel yesterday, need to think about as you build your teams. Those teams are significantly larger. We actually look at the number of team members that make it to the semifinals pool versus the applicant pool. They are dramatically bigger, all right? There are a ton of applicants that we get every year that have like a one-person team. They don't even make it to the semifinals. Not because we're ruling them out, but because their application and their planned entry into the market doesn't take into account those diverse viewpoints. And finally, I'm going to tell you that the vast majority of the companies that make it to this level, and I haven't analyzed all the finalists this year, but in the last few years, all the finalists have gotten referred out of an entrepreneurial support organization or have had some form of entrepreneurial support from a mentor-driven program, whether it's I-Corps or an incubator accelerator like Capital Factory or some other mentor-driven program. So if you are not competitors, if you're not engaged with an ESO now, we encourage you to take a look at one geared towards your industry or your region. So a little bit about our semifinalists this year. Just wanted to show you that these come from all across the state. I'm not going to belabor this, but we'd love to see diversity in terms of regions. I love to see the companies coming here from Bryan College Station, all of which are not associated with Texas A&M. Few of them are, and then from all over the state. We also see a good diversity and a growing diversity in the types of industries these companies are coming from. In fact, this year is one of the most diverse. We have healthcare and its related industries still take up the majority or the largest share, but that's down substantially. It used to be healthcare dominated. We love you healthcare companies. I'm not trying to talk negative about you, but this is a technology agnostic competition, and we really want to see diversity in the types of companies, and that will be represented in the finals today. Also, I wanted to mention IT and clean tech technologies are the two fastest growing that we've seen year over year in the last 2 years. I need to say a quick thank you to the folks behind this. I've made this joke a few times about me just being the pretty face up here talking. Honestly, these guys feed me everything to be able to say to you and even running this competition. So I want to ask all of our TNVC team to stand up real quick and recognize them real fast. All of you in the room, please stand up. Thank you so much. I know it's been crazy. Most of this team is new this year, and it's been a little bit of drinking from a fire hose. So I got to say a personal thank you to those folks, and would appreciate it if you'd join me in thanking them if you see them in the hallway afterwards. So now I want to introduce our finals judges before we get into the pitches themselves. So I'm going to ask them to stand up as I call them out and tell you who they're representing. You can get in both the app and in the printed program. You can look at their backgrounds in more detail. This is truly an impressive group of folks. We always invite the top echelon of judges every year to serve at this panel. So the fact that you guys are even on this panel is a testament to what we think of y'all. Want to recognize Luis Martinez. He's the senior associate at Capital Factory. He's a startup mentor and inventor, and he actually has multiple patents to his name, which I think is really cool. Luis and I have known each other for a while too, from his days in San Antonio and supporting that ecosystem. He's still based there, but now working with Capital Factory, supporting companies statewide. So like I told you before, we try to keep our past winners engaged. One of our traditions is actually inviting our past winners that have had major milestones in their company, and especially the immediate past winner of TNVC, to participate in a keynote panel that we held yesterday afternoon. The idea is the newer generation is learning from the successful older generation. The first person I would recognize out of that group is Josh Mecca with M&S Biotics. He's a past TNVC winner and was a panelist yesterday. Thanks, Josh. Tyler Melton with Corvius, who won TNVC last year. He's the chief executive and co-founder and was also a panelist. Then I want to recognize Srini Nirala. He is the founder and CEO of SIA Solutions, and he's here representing Aggie Angel Network, one of our longest supporting sponsors and continued investor sponsor this year. Oh, thank you, Srini. Sabina Ward, another longtime supporter of this. She's a patent attorney and a longtime supporter at TNVC through her role as an IP judge with Schwegman, Lundberg, and Vosner. So I'm slowly learning how to pronounce that better. I think I'm getting pretty close. Thank you for your many years of support and for serving as a finals judge again this year. Sabina served, we looked it up, 2018, right? 2019 she served last. So it's cool to have her back again this year, and for your firm's continued support. And then new to judging this year is someone that's becoming a good friend and that we're thrilled to have with us, and that's John White. John White's partner at Murphy Ventures. He's also a past chair of the Texas A&M System Board of Regents. He's been an active investor in companies like yours over the years, served as a board member and advisor for many companies, including some spin-outs out of Texas A&M. So I want to thank John for joining us this year. And I also want to recognize Michael Wilson. He's an entrepreneur himself. As we heard yesterday, he's an Olympian turned CEO. He was our keynote speaker yesterday and is CEO now of Healthcare Highways. love that you joined us this year, and thank you again for that awesome keynote yesterday that set the tone for our competition. So please, if you want to learn more about them, take a look in your program or in the app to get more details. Just putting this up one more time. Remember to use it in social media. And I also want to go ahead and explain how the finals pitches themselves are going to work. Just like in the morning rounds, it's a 10-minute pitch and a 10-minute Q&A. The total is 20 minutes. We don't cut the companies off at 10 minutes, though. If they run a little long or a little short, that's up to them, all right? Not a big deal. It does tend to cut into Q&A time, and they know that. We've worked with them in coaching to try and hit that 10-minute mark as close as possible. If it's like years past, these top 6 have no problem. They made it to this point because they have a very polished pitch. At 20 minutes, though, I am going to cut them off. That also means I might be cutting off you as finals judges. I'll apologize in advance, but we do have a clock to keep on that I'm probably already forcing us to run behind. We do give the opportunity for the audience to contribute as well and ask questions. We do that through Slido. Actually, earlier in the event, we did it through the app. We decided to switch back to Slido because we had some technical issues. This is an easy and proven platform. You can scan that QR code. Those of you online or here, if it's easier for you, go to slido.com and type in that code 1353950. We'll post that in the chat in the app as well for anyone following online. You'll submit questions. Finals judges, as we talked about, they're going to show up here on the screen, okay? You don't have to take those into account. Your own questions take priority, but oftentimes these questions help inspire or refine the things that you'd like to have brought up. Don't feel obligated to answer these. We're not going to get through them all, but use it as inspiration for some of your own lines of questioning. If we end up with a little bit of time at the end and I see that there are some questions left, I might go ahead and ask that question of the company. We'll leave this code up on the screen as well. So if you haven't got it yet, you'll get another chance. Incidentally, we'll be using the same Slido app for the elevator pitch voting in a bit. So that's how you'll access that as well. Okay, before we get going, any questions? Everybody feel equipped? Competitors? Your finalists? You guys ready to go? All right. Well, we're going to invite the finalists up. These are in no particular order. Actually, I think we did them in alphabetic order. So it's nothing to do with their ranking or where they, how they performed earlier in the program, other than the fact they're in the top 6. We're going to invite you up, and Amanda is going to mic you up. So Bridgeway, go ahead and make your way up. You're going to be our first company. Amanda's going to mic you up. I'm going to step off the stage. Our AV staff is going to put your presentation up on the screen. It'll be on all 3 screens during their pitch, and then this screen will convert to Q&A. And I'm going to step off to the side and come back up, help moderate the questions, and I'll come back up to announce the new winner. Cool. All right. We ready? Sir. Good luck, Duncan.
Hello, we are Bridgeway Innovations. I'd like to thank the organizers. Oh, thank you very much. Judges from all day long and the sponsors. Great. So we make grafts, bone grafts, and our grafts are special in that they enable healing in patients suffering from metabolic disease. So the problem that we focus on is peripheral neuropathy, and this affects 20 million patients in the US per year. The problem with this is one of the features of neuropathy is oxidative stress. An oxidative chemical that you guys all know of is hydrogen peroxide. Most of you will have that in your medicine cabinets. Oxidative species are good. The body needs them, except in these patients, they're overproduced. They break down, and they actually are attacking the body. And so they delay healing and they have cascading complications. The first indication that we're working on is Charcot foot. Diabetic patients are well known for getting Charcot foot, but also other neuropathy patients. People with multiple sclerosis. This is another disease that can lead to Charcot. In Charcot, the bones and joints of the foot are breaking down. And the right-hand side, the treatment to date is shown, is that you try to fuse with titanium plates and anchors, and you try to fuse from good bone to good bone and secure that foot. Problem is 68% of those with Charcot foot, that fusion fails. And the mortality rate is at 28%, amputation at 26%, and the lifespan is 8 years on average for those patients. And I forgot to mention, 300,000 in US adults per year, and about 10,000 to 15,000 kids are undergoing this. So our solution is an antioxidant, a material that consumes those reactive oxygen species and normalizes the microenvironment to create something close to normal healing. The form factor is a sheet of this polymer foam. It's being passed around to the judges, and it is trimmed in the surgery suite by the clinician to fit whatever needs to be, and you'll see some different form factors in the model of the foot that's being passed around. Our materials are designed to have properties close to and compliance match with bone, so they're tough and they're porous. They wick liquids and they create pathways for the healing system for cells to get in and do what we want, which is to create fusion. So we have a joint with reactive oxygen species. We try to stabilize it with titanium plates and screws, and with our graft in place, we get fusion. Diabetic patients don't get fusion. They have trouble with fusion. That's why 68% fails. Our materials sequester the ROS, the reactive oxygen species, and in this animal study that we're showing here, we got 68% recovery of the bone in 6 weeks. This, taken out to 12 weeks to 4 months, that kind of time scale is where we need to be to get full fusion, but this is our pilot data, 66% fusion. So we have an antioxidant. It's highly porous with interconnects. It's designed to resorb in layers so that we don't do what other grafts, synthetic grafts do, which is blast the area with breakdown products of the materials. And it's a synthetic material without any additional drugs or additives or biologics. And there's our competitive matrix with antioxidant and porous structure being our featured advantages over all and others. So our first application is going after this foot and ankle market, which is $300 million. It is in partnership with the company that we licensed this IP from. Enovis is a $3 billion cap foot and ankle orthopedic company. And so part of our deal is that we will develop and get through the FDA these materials and then sell it back to them for this market. Our second market is solely owned, and any other applications, spine, shoulder, hip, etc., will be solely BWI. A detail that matters sometimes to investors is that the sales price for this within the implantable allowance, which is $17,000, is about $4,000. And those sheets cost about, sterilized, delivered into the suite, about $150 to manufacture. So the margin for this product is good. So we've developed these materials, de-risked them with biocompatibility, going through a large matrix of possible materials, working with Enovis, and we're going after this market. the revenue shown here is the BWI take on our sales of products, working with the Innovus sales engine, sales and marketing team. We will be working to develop, one of my specialties is non-dilutive funding. And so we are working with a development contract with Innovus, and we have several grants, applications, SBIRs, et cetera, submitted. And then as we move forward in time, we will start working on the spine product. And that's some sales numbers for the estimates for the first 3 years on spine. Tyler Touche could not be here because he's recovering from a surgery, knee surgery. He developed this material at a predecessor that was acquired by Innovus. And so he has commercialized from concept to sales 10 orthopedic devices by himself, well, with the team. Landon Nash, wherever he was, he is, oh, there he is. He has an expertise in biodegradable or bioresorbable materials and getting those materials through the FDA. He's done it with 4 devices, and he also has expertise in intellectual property, creating intellectual property fields and executing sublicenses for those additional fields. I am currently a biomedical engineering professor at Texas A&M University for about 3 more months, and I am transitioning out of academia to full-time into the startup world. I've raised over $25 million in non-dilutive funds for another company that we spun out of Texas A&M. And Bala Haridis has expertise in product strategy, working with strategics and selling products and companies to strategics. And so this is our team. We have 2 clinicians that have expertise in foot and ankle right now that are slamming their hand on the table saying they want this material. And we have a veterinary clinician here at A&M who has expertise in diabetic animal models. And we have an executive of Innovus on our team. So in summary, the barriers to entry need to establish a sales stream. With our first product, we leverage Innovus. We have a deal with them as part of the license that will sell to them, and they will utilize their sales and marketing team and their pathways. And so that gets us to stand up manufacturing. It gets us experience to build up a team towards spine and other applications, and it gets us to revenue as fast as possible. Technology, we have the license from Innovus that is this unique idea of having a reactive oxygen species scavenging material. And from a regulatory standpoint, the previous company that I spun out of Texas A&M, those were the very first devices that are oxidatively degradable intentionally as if implantable devices. So our team is the team that got first devices like this through the FDA. And so we have unique expertise in this area. And I did pretty well with 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Go straight into Q&A.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I have a question related to your IP and relationship with Innovus. So
Sure.
You said you're licensing from Innovus. It seems like you first sold it to them and then they're licensing it back, perhaps? Maybe you can clarify that. Also, you have some IP on your own, and I'd like to understand what the scope of these 2 parts of the technology and the IP, the patents associated with them or applications are. And related to your product, you said your first stage is to go through Innovus essentially and sell through them, but then it sounds like you're going out on your own, and I'd like to understand whether the Innovus license covers you throughout or whether you won't need it in the future? What is the relationship there?
Happy to. So Innovus makes titanium hardware. That's where they make their money. They do not have the expertise in polymer systems, and they especially don't have the expertise in oxidatively degradable polymer systems. And so they didn't want to develop it in-house. And so they decided to work with us and license exclusive worldwide all fields of use in medical and veterinary for us to use it. So to answer your last question, outside of foot and ankle, we're free to sell any device in medical and veterinary applications. Okay? And so the reason why, I mean, it's our background. This is what we do, is why they're working with us. We make it, we sell it to them at a fixed profit in the foot and ankle space, and that was indicated by the sales numbers or the revenue numbers that we had on the slide. And so that's the deal that's built into this license. As far as additional IP, I'll kick it off to our IP expert.
Yeah, so the Innovus license includes the core technology that we're pitching on today, right? It's a specific material system for orthopedic grafting. But the same playbook we're using for scavenging ROS and Charcot foot, that playbook can be applied to other diseases such as chronic diabetic ulcers or things like that. But the soft tissues are a lot different than bone. So we have to tailor the chemistry to those target applications. So it's tangent to this core IP, but it's differentiated enough that we've spun it out ourselves and it's wholly owned.
All right, thank you.
Could everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Great job with the presentation. It was awesome. The question I have is more around the relationship with Innovus. I think it's great that you have a clear path to exit, you know who's going to buy you, but then it becomes at what time and what are those limitations? Are they going to keep moving the goalposts further and further away from acquisition? That can make a lot of investors nervous. So how do you guys kind of temper that fear of, you know, they could only sell to Innovus and they, you know, pretty much control the timetable?
Well, they only have exclusive rights for foot and ankle space.
Okay.
So there isn't a fixed acquisition plan within this license.
Got it.
Your point is correct. Them acquiring us is one logical exit path for us. But none of that has been discussed, no terms. So as it stands, we're free to do spine. And they have no restrictions and no income to them go as part of that license. They negotiated solely for their space, which is foot and ankle.
I've got a question about your strategy. So with regards to foot and ankle, I see that sort of first step. I'm wondering why spine is second. There's so many other space you could be exploring in the ortho space. And so I'm wondering like why spine is your second market. And then with regards to that, what are your steps today? And it could be grant funding, it could be other things that you're looking to go ahead and enter the market that you could be owning exclusively.
Your point on spine is well taken. So we could be pursuing shoulder. In these
easier.
Yeah.
A lot easier.
Your point is well taken. Spine is the biggest market.
It's also really hard.
It is hard depending on how our discussions with the FDA go.
So tell me why spine, or tell me how
Spine,
you're
we're
making
driven
progress
towards
towards
the
it.
market. If the FDA comes back and we have to do a clinical trial of any significance, you're right. We will pivot to another ortho application.
So do you know what that second choice will be?
What would the second choice be? Hip or shoulder, probably.
Duncan, first of all, congratulations on your successes so far. My question is, I saw that you've done animal studies on this one and you've been successful. At what stage, if any, would FDA require human clinical trials? Would that be required?
So there's a unique set of skills required to deal with bioresorbable or biodegradable materials. These are experiences that we have, as we've indicated. In the foot and ankle, under no circumstances do we or any of our regulatory experts anticipate the need for human data to get approval, to get a 510K. There's porous graft materials that are out there, they're predicates, and so we don't have to emphasize the ROS, we just have to emphasize the fusion outcome. And so we can 510K this in foot and ankle. It's always beneficial to a company to have differentiating clinical data. My experience with the other company is it's always best to do your clinical trials post-market so that you're getting revenues and some reimbursement on those studies. And so that would be our strategy for foot and ankle, is to do post-market for a 510K. The point about the spine is if it's anywhere touching nerves or close to nerves, it could result in a trigger to have to do clinical studies because they were going to want to know how this material interacts with nerve tissue.
A follow-up, how extensive have your animal pilot tests been to date?
So we've done the 6-week studies. We need to take these out for 2 reasons. We expect to have full fusion at about 12 weeks, and we need to go to different animal models, hence Dr. Saunders from A&M's veterinary school, and moving into a different animal model, which is rabbit is the likely culprit. That's at least what we've been proposing. So we need to go out further to see full fusion. And we need to do it in a different part that's not the skull, and so we've got a tibia model that we're pursuing. But the other reason you need to go out further is because for materials that bioresorb or degrade, the FDA wants to see you to take animals. Now, it doesn't have to be a functional part. They don't require you to have this study that I'm describing being part of showing that there's bone fusion, but they want to know that you're putting these materials in the same kind of area that you would in humans, and that it goes to 100% degradation, and that you're looking at their liver, you're looking at their kidneys, you're looking at their brain, you're looking at pathology, looking for any adverse indications or events. And so that will be probably around 6 months based on what we've been looking at. So we need to do 6-month animal studies and 12-week to 6 months animal studies.
I had a quick question. Thank you for discussing the technology. You mentioned 68% failure rate currently with fusion. What's the current standard of care once that does fail? Is there other alternatives?
Amputation. I mean, they could retry. We didn't put in the gory pictures, but they'll retry with fusion, but the endpoint is amputation.
Thank you.
We had one question that was submitted by an audience member. Finals judges, did you feel like that got covered?
Well, real quick, the question from the audience is, what's your longer-term revenue potential beyond the 3 years shown?
Long-term revenue. So, foot and ankle revenue, you could see in the many tens of millions a year with a reasonable market share. You get into spine, you're into 100, you can be up to 100 million.
Time. Good job. Thank you very much. Next up is FreezeKnit, and then Glider will be following them. Cody, can you clear the question? You have their deck ready? Freezing it?
So hi, I'm Joanna Shu. I'm co-founder and CEO of Freezing It, and we're developing a non-toxic treatment for head lice that uses only cold CO2 gas. So I'm a mom of 3 kids, and they've all had head lice more than once. And each time I was surprised at how difficult it was to treat. But it's really common. About 1 in 3 kids will get head lice at some point, and the result is around 17 million cases per year in the US. And the big result is 24 million missed days of school and work. So the ripple effect from one tiny bug is huge. So kids miss school, so they fall behind. Parents miss work, which means lost wages and productivity. And all this adds up to an $8 billion annual cost to our economy. And why the 24 million missed days of school? That's the policy at most schools. You have to stay home until all the lice and the eggs, the nits, are gone. And that's not easy to do because current treatments are pretty terrible, usually involving pesticides, hours of tedious combing, and lots of messy creams. They're also ineffective. Lice have developed resistance to most of the popular products available on the shelf. And that's why we developed Freezing It, because we think we can do better. Freezing It kills head lice and nits in one short treatment with no harsh chemicals. It takes about 15 minutes, so no prescriptions, no combing, no mess. Our goal is to get children treated quickly so they can get back to learning and parents can get back to earning. We've proposed our solution, talked to hundreds of parents, dozens of doctors and nurses, and gotten tremendous feedback on this solution. So this is how it works. It fills a bonnet worn on the patient's head with cold CO2 gas, simultaneously freezing and asphyxiating the lice and their eggs. So like I said, it's quick, it's under 15 minutes. It's chilly, it's about 14 degrees Fahrenheit, but since it's so quick, and to put that temperature into perspective, chemo patients who are undergoing cold capping to keep their hair during chemotherapy, that's minus 35 degrees Fahrenheit for 6 to 8 hours. So we're much warmer, much shorter duration, so we don't anticipate any negative side effects on the hair or scalp. And why 14 degrees Fahrenheit? We've tested it in vitro, and that kills 100% of lice with that temperature and CO2 for under 15 minutes. So like I said, this will take treatment right now, which is 9 to 12 days, take it down to under an hour with no combing. And our competitors fall short for several reasons. So CDC recommends the first-line treatment are permethrin-based creams. The market leader is NYX. It has about 40% of the in-store spend. Unfortunately, it no longer works on super lice. It's also banned in many countries, including the EU. Dimethicone-based serums, it's considered first-line treatment in Europe. It's very messy, been compared to the consistency of motor oil. It takes up to 5 separate applications, so lots of tedious combing. So when those treatments fail, and they do in about over half of the cases, so 50% failure rate, usually parents, their next step will be to call their pediatrician. The doctor will either write them a prescription, which are pretty expensive, and while they're effective now, each year we see increasing incidence of resistance among lice. So 10 years from now, 5 years from now, we're going to be around that same path that permethrin is. The next step that they'll usually go to is visit a lice salon. So doctors either write a prescription or refer them out. Lice salons are pretty expensive. I've never seen it under $200, and time consuming. It's just manual removal with a comb. So the market size is pretty significant. That's 17 million cases per year. So what it means is about 5.2% of the US population is positive for lice or nits at any given time. So you could do the math in the room, like don't look around. And in 2022, the American Academy of Pediatrics estimates that $500 million was spent on OTC creams, and we know that probably half of that was a total waste. Right? So we believe that we can take about 10% of that market in relatively short order, with our beachhead being the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which is where our office, our clinical advisory panel is located, as well as it's the number 3 area of the country for density of urgent cares, and the 2nd largest school district in the state of Texas. So we plan to bring this product to market as a service, available at urgent cares, physician offices, pharmacies, walk-in health clinics. So the value prop for the parents, it's really clear, right? You're taking that burden off of mom and dad. It's saving time and aggravation. But for the clinical practices, this gives them additional on-site service revenue that in the beginning would be cash pay. We do plan to simultaneously pursue reimbursement, but we all know that's not granted overnight. So we would start with cash pay. So this is a well-worn path to market in healthcare. We are not reinventing the wheel by any means. Parents are already going to their doctors, to urgent cares for lice treatment, and we'd be taking a page from the playbook of, let's say, an EKG machine. So there's an upfront capital cost for the clinical practice, and then they would need to purchase disposables for each patient. They conduct the service on the patient. They bill the patient or their insurance for the service. So each location would have a one-time purchase of a base device, around $500, and then they would need single-use gas cartridge and bonnet per patient. We believe then that they could turn around and charge the patient around $100 for this service. So we have 2 pilot sites who signed letters of intent to test our next generation device. We've also entered into discussions with APDI, the Alliance for Pediatric Device Innovation. They're run out of Children's National Hospital in DC, and the nurses from Children's National staff the school nurse office in all the area schools in DC. So they would be able to diagnose, kids in their natural habitat and then send them our way. So where we are today, we've filed an international patent application through the PCT. About 2 weeks ago, we got initial search results back that were preliminarily positive, indicating our claims are patentable. It's just, again, it's preliminary. We still have to engage with the USPTO, but it's a good sign. And that's a utility patent that covers the device, its uses, and various alternatives. Those alternatives mean, in this case, migraines and bed bugs. We're not pursuing that right now. I just want to plant the seed for later. That's where this platform can go. And we're the team to do it. So my background is in consumer products. I founded my own skincare company, Refresh Skin Therapy, about 10 years ago. Took it all the way from an idea to distribution worldwide through major retailers such as Costco, Walmart, Sam's Club, and Rite Aid. I exited last year. My co-founder, Dr. Carol Spangler-Vaughn, has spent decades in the life science field, and she is the source of our IP. She's our scientist. Our CTO, Dan Coppins, he founded and exited his own medical device engineering firm. It was called QFix Medical. It was purchased by CQ Medical. So these are our revenue projections, and the key assumption here is that each year we would onboard one major chain, just one. And by major, I mean one with over 500 locations, whether that's a CVS Minute Clinic, a Care Now, Walgreens, in addition to smaller groups and independents. So we're raising $500,000 right now to bring this device to market. And what that will get us is our clinical proof, our final design, and our regulatory pathway completed. So this is a pretty simple device with a quick path to market. So we anticipate only one additional future raise of about $5 million, and that will fund a full North America rollout. We plan to exit via acquisition in the next 5 to 7 years. Those are some my wish list for target acquirers, medical device distributors, most likely, and some comps for you. So the bookends are single product medical device firms and who they were bought by and for how much. The middle one is actually consumer product line, because in a lot of ways, although we're a regulated device, there's a heavy consumer angle. And so that's it. Freeze and It treats head lice and nits with no harsh chemicals, and so we'd be improving the treatment for millions of children each year who get head lice. So happy to take questions.
Congratulations.
Oh.
I think it's fascinating. Would it require a provider, a licensed provider, to provide this application and to work on the patient, or can it be done even at a school system with a nurse or non-licensed?
So for reimbursement, if you want to be reimbursed, it would need to be a provider. But it doesn't require prescription, and yes, it can be run by a school nurse. That's where we envision it also is the ideal scenario is if the child gets diagnosed at school, the school nurse says, hey, do you want me to treat this, or do you want me to send you a problem home and you need to leave work right now? And they'd be like, no, please take care of it. And then the child could go back to class. So that's the ideal scenario.
My question is somewhat similar to his, probably the later half of it. I see that you're marketing to, pharmacies and urgent cares and such, but could you not go to schools and do the same thing? Are you doing that?
It's part of the plan. They're just, school systems are pretty fragmented. So the great thing about Dallas is that they have a centralized clinic for all the Dallas ISD schools. So that for us would, be easy, but, there's, I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of independent school districts, just in this state. So it's just, that's the kind of low-hanging fruit would be the Minute Clinic with 500 locations, but yes, schools are on our radar.
Thank you. Anyone else? I applaud this. One of my daughters is a pediatrician, and this is a real-world problem that you're attacking. You talked about the devices and the disposables. What's your strategy for getting those? Do they exist today, or are you going to have to develop those and get them manufactured?
Yes, we're going to have to get manufacturing. We have a proof of concept device that we developed at UT Dallas, and we have a bonnet that is kind of there, but it's going to need some more work in order to go through the IRB. So that's why we're raising right now, so we can finish the device and take it to clinical trials.
Following up with that same question, does the device, was it one size fits all as the plan, or is there different head sizes for smaller children versus?
Different sizes. Let me find that.
Thank you.
Yes. So we have to account for all hair textures, volumes, lengths, and so we're going to need multiple sizes for kids and adults. So although I don't think we would go younger than 3, because that would just be too much, but yeah, so that's the great thing about Children's National. They have such a diverse patient population, so it allows us to test this really on everyone.
I'm curious about your international opportunity. Could you talk a little bit more, or could you talk, or you talked specifically just about the US. Can you tell me a little bit more about what your thoughts are about entering an international market, what those initial first country targets might be?
So yeah, definitely US, Canada, and then the EU. And after that, I'm unsure, but those are the main targets.
On your competitor slide list, you mentioned a number of companies that provide creams and sort of various medications that you apply, whereas your approach is entirely different. Now, the TNVC team did some searching on sort of the IP landscape and similar technologies, and they came up with a couple of cases. One was actually using cool air for lice treatment. The other one was kind of the opposite approach, a heat treatment. Have you done a search for similar patented technology? Is there any obstacle, any roadblock that would prevent you from doing what you're doing? Or to the extent other patent applications perhaps didn't move forward, or companies haven't emerged from that, do you have any sense of why not?
So I'll answer about the competitors first. So the heat device is the only approved device to treat head lice by the only FDA cleared device. And so that's owned by Lice Clinics of America. It's only available in their franchise locations. And so those would never be available for reimbursement. So they're stuck with only going after, the very small slice of the population who can afford that out of pocket. And it's $250 plus. The cold one, there was a device that was used for, I think it's Zimmer, I'd have to check, but it's used to cool the skin during tattoo removal. And so they just stuck a new, basically they stuck a comb on the end of it instead and said, oh, this will demobilize head lice. Now, do you want slow head lice or do you want dead head lice? Because and then they got in trouble with the FDA, and it was all their marketing material disappeared. So I'm not sure exactly where that is, but I know they got caught doing something they weren't supposed to because they're making a disease claim with no evidence.
This might be a dumb question, but the conditions for the in vitro testing, were they just in a petri dish when you guys did it? So I guess my question is coming, you put it on a child, there's going to be ambient heat, their head, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Have you tried or kind of incorporated that into any study? Because it might not be 15 minutes with that ambient heat. It might be 25 now. And maybe that's why, the cool cap for cancer patients is, negative 30 or whatever it was. I guess, how does it work with heat, heat from the head?
Yeah, so we weren't able to study that. We had it in a test tube where we could, so it was just, starting at room temperature, and then obviously we cooled it. It wasn't really a great way. We couldn't use animal studies to replicate it. They have tested CO2 to kill lice on chickens, so avian lice, but that's the only animal model. But lice on other animals are totally different from human lice. Actually, even the body louse is different from the head louse. So it's kind of we need to check it on real people, but we know that when those lice are exposed to this temperature with this gas, they're going to die. So it actually is under 15 minutes. So there's going to be a ramp up period because, if you like put your hand in boiling water and it's like, whoa, but if you put your hand in room temperature water and you slowly, warm it up, it's a different perception of that temperature. And so we're going to play with that for the patient comfort.
Just a quick follow-up. Yeah, again, with the heat, if you're just able to take the Petri dish, put it on like a hot plate or something like that, so you're at least introducing some heat just to see if you're getting the same effects.
That's on our testing rig. It's a Costco rotisserie chicken, actually.
Perfect.
Quick question. After it's done, is there a way does the CVS or the doctor verify that there's been full success, or do you know the threshold should eliminate them without any sort of confirmation?
Do you mean for the clinical trials or?
I'm talking about during the actual, like say a CVS does it, puts a cap on. When they're done, do they go in and look and make sure it's all gone, or do they just assume that it's done prior to discharging?
I would assume we would have them check, do a quick visual inspection, and then offer a 30-day free retreat if it's not taken care of. But beyond 30 days, the odds are they would just get reinfected from a friend or wherever they got it in the first place. So,
thank you.
In thinking about your device and thinking through the possibility of having someone come out there and like copy exactly what you're doing and manufacture in a different way, walk me through what your competitive advantage and how you win will be against those kind of entrants into the market.
Like doing the exact same thing, like copying, doing CO2?
Yeah, like so, well, even exact CO2. I mean, there's lots here where someone could just copy what you're doing and try to enter the market as a late laggard and forget about the IP, right? So I'm trying to think through, like, how will you win when you think about as competitors enter the space with similar technologies or similar approaches?
I kind of hope they do in some ways, because that's my background is skincare, and there was no patents. It's trade secret and marketing and branding, right? And so that's how we didn't have a patent on our skincare, but we had loyal customers who trusted our brand and what we bring to the table and all our guarantees. And I hope to do the same thing. I would love a strong patent behind me, but like you said, if people are really interested, they can find a way around a patent.
If the solution that you're proposing works as you think it will once you've tested it, then it seems like it's far preferable over the alternatives that are commonly used currently. Now, in light of that, I think your market penetration estimates seem pretty conservative. You said like 10%, and go with one kind of institution per year. Do you foresee any obstacles to getting, I don't know, 100% of the market or something close, right? And why would you not be
more aggressive?
Yeah, exactly.
Under promise and over deliver.
Okay.
I guess, right?
Principle. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think once the data is published, once doctors understand it and realize it's cheap to bring in, $500, I mean, they spend that on a staff lunch, but now they can make hundreds every day on it, cash. Doctors were very interested in that model that we showed them. So.
There's an interesting audience question. What level of proof do you currently have regarding the effectiveness of this method for treatment? You mentioned the Petri dish, but
I am so glad that someone asked that, because I was ready for you. So in terms of efficacy, like I said, it's in vitro. It's been tested on chickens, not exactly the same, and we're raising so we can get this clinical proof. And it's a pretty cheap clinical trial, actually. I mean, as in terms of clinical trials, right? Because we don't have this long follow-up period. It's either they're gone or they're not, next day or at 1 week out, maybe 30 days follow-up with the patient. But it's not like we don't have to check over years that they're going to survive. So yes, they're going to survive. And we go about it in 3 different ways. So CO2 is toxic to insects at high concentrations, regardless of temperature. So that's one. CO2 asphyxiates the head lice. And then we also freeze them. So it's because that's why I was hoping someone was asking me this question, because I guess asked it all the time. If it's so great, wasn't anyone already doing it? Because people hate the combing. And that's what my co-founder and we found out firsthand as parents. All these treatments that exist right now, they're not effective without combing. It requires the combing, but everybody hates the combing, right? So we said, what do we need to get rid of the combing? So we need 2 modalities of action. So that's why we use the cold and the gas to replace the hated combing. So y'all are too nice. Usually I get. any of your questions.
This is a yes or no one. There's only 20 seconds left. Does the child have to shave their head or cut hair?
No. No.
All right. I think the rest are going to take too long to answer, even read the question. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Next up is glider. Harmony desalting will be next if you want to be close.
Hi, little change of pace. I'm Peter Bartnick, and I'm the CEO of Glider, and this is Rick Tett, my CTO and the inventor of Glider. Rick and I have known each other for way more years than we care to remember, 30 years or so, and we've worked on a couple of projects together over the years. So Glider is the world's first high-precision foot controller for video games and VR. It's designed to improve your performance in games and make playing video games and VR more fun. Video games have been around for a long time. How many gamers we got out there? Quick show of hands, a couple on the judges here, right? A few others. They're a lot more immersive than they used to be. Way back then, we had 5 keys to play with. Now we've blown past 20. A lot more complications, but you still don't necessarily have a greater deal of control. You're still overusing your hands, you're doing weird finger actions, and you're straining and stressing your wrists and fingers. So the overloading of the hands has tried to be solved by adding more buttons to mice and adding additional paddles to controllers. It gives you a few more options, but it doesn't necessarily give you more control. So let me introduce you to Glider. It's the first dual foot controller for video games and VR. It's analog, which means that you can use it for moving around, ducking and crouching, peeking around corners, aiming, whatever you like. It's fully configurable, software configurable, so you can download a configuration for a particular game or even for a particular style of play within a game. If you're a sniper in Call of Duty, or if you're in support and you're providing med packs or additional weapons, then that might require you to configure the device in a different way. And it's very affordable. We're looking at a retail price of $299, which we've tested at market and Kickstarter. So it's designed for seated use. You place your feet in the middle of the paddles. I'm sure that people in the back can't see, but if you're looking at the screen, you can see your feet sit in the middle of the pedals. They can move forwards and backwards, and there's a flap on each side, so it can give you a combination of 16 independent actions. Now, you can program Glider to either move around in the game for locomotion, or you can program it to do very specific things. You might want to program it for ducking, crouching, or peeking. If you use Excel, you might want to use it for copying and pasting or doing various functions. Anything you want to do with a keyboard, mouse, or a gamepad, you can program Glider to do. We ran a Kickstarter in February. We had 450 sales, raised about $83,000. So we wanted to test the price point, and we wanted to get an initial indication of demand. Now, Kickstarters can be a disaster if they're not run well. We planned ours very carefully, and we think the result was a good indication that there's sufficient demand out there to go to market. Using Glider is pretty simple. You plonk it on the floor, you connect it with USB or later Bluetooth, you pick a profile for your favorite game, and you play. It's pretty simple. But don't take our word for it. This is a picture of Quake Angel, one of our Glider streamers, who's been trialing Glider to play Dead by Daylight with their feet. We've built a number of working prototypes, and they've been in use with esports players and other gamers around the country and internationally. And we're getting feedback from them that we're feeding back into our final design and engineering. And Glider, because it looks to the PC as just another keyboard, mouse, or gamepad, it's compatible with 90% of the video games for PCs out there. Now, we haven't tested them all exhaustively. We've tried most of the popular ones. We want to get to market and make sure that we're compatible with all the other ones as well. And Glider is really about improving your skill in particular games. It's compatible with any genre of game. You can use it in adventure games. You can use it in first-person shooters. You can use it in fighting games or in sports games like Madden or 2K. And again, Glider's analog, so you have precise control over your character's movement, and it enables you to do a combination of movements and activities or actions within the game. And it relieves stress on your hands and wrists and fingers during mammoth gaming sessions. We've had a number of streamers talk to us and say, look, I'd love to use this for doing push-to-talk or to bring in a video stream without taking my hands off the keyboard. So we're targeting a very big market, 3 billion gamers worldwide. 1.6 billion of those are PC gamers. So we're really targeting the younger end of the PC gamers in North America, the UK, and Europe initially. And we have some adjacent markets in virtual reality, eventually, therapy and therapeutics and telerobotics. There are other foot controllers out on the market. They fall into across a couple of different dimensions. Obviously, there's flight sim pedals for flight simulation games. There's race car pedals with wheels for racing games. There's single button push pedals for doing one specific job. There's 3-button rigs that you can buy. There's 4-button rigs you can buy. But again, they're binary. They're not analog. You've got to reprogram them using software before you can reuse them. Glider really sits on its own in terms of its versatility and its ease of use. A lot of the work that we've done in refining the prototypes has been how comfortable is it to play this over a long period of time? Are the actions uncomfortable? Do you get sore ankles? Do you get cramps? So we've got a good team. As I said, Rick and I have known each other for 30 years. And our third co-founder, John Warren, Rick is known for 15 years. My background's in sales and marketing and go-to-market with technology companies generally. I had a previous life in making consumer products. So I've been through the manufacturing process, so I'm aware of some of the pitfalls and things to look out for. Rick's an inventor. He's software developer, worked with hardware, 15 patents, and we've worked together on a couple of projects over the years. John was formerly the head of media for Fanbyte magazine, which is a 10-cent publication. And we've got a terrific group of advisors as well. Adam Reimer, who's the former CEO of Optic Gaming. Jordan Reese, the founder of Astro Gaming. They sold to Skullcandy, and I think Skullcandy sold to Logitech. And also Jinwan Lee, who's an expert in consumer products manufacturing. Our go-to-market plan is straightforward. We plan to sell for $2.99 at retail on a branded site, a branded Shopify site that we've established or we're putting up at the moment. Our cost of goods is $65, so the gross margins are 75%. We're still working on customer acquisition costs and other things, but there's a healthy margin there for us to work with. And again, we're starting off with a Glider branded Shopify site, and we'll look at other channels as we need to. On the channel side, we're looking at doing work with organic and paid influencers, social media, other streamers and gaming personalities, and content marketing generally. We've bootstrapped this. Rick had several $100,000 in the prototypes and the filing of the patents before we incorporated Glider. And it was important for us to come up with a program that was going to enable us to get to market first, get the devices out into the market, let people try them out and start talking about them themselves. Again, we've got a bunch of patents awarded just for Glider, 2 here in the US, China, Japan, Korea, South Korea, and we've just been given the go-ahead for Europe, so that'll be Germany, UK, France, and Switzerland. So the idea came about when Rick was on the board of a science museum in Dallas. They had a challenge for how we're going to get around in VR. So teleporting was pretty unfulfilling for most people. And Rick looked out his window one morning and saw his nephew in the driveway on his hoverboard. And so he looked at the controls, did a few patent searches, and Glider was born. So Rick spent quite a bit of time perfecting the prototypes, working with different designs and models. We've got things made out of wood that we can show you if you're interested. First patents were granted a couple of years ago. We founded Glider to bring the device to market specifically with our third co-founder, John Warren. We ran a Kickstarter in February. We raised $83,000 from 450 backers. We've just completed a friends and family round as well. We raised $140,000. We're talking with a design and engineering firm that specializes in gaming peripherals. They're known worldwide. They work with all the big guys. They wanted to work with us. And we're working through engineering and design for manufacture at the moment. We hope to produce product and deliver by December or early in first quarter next year. We don't plan on selling so many gliders this year. We'll probably exceed 440. We do think we can sell a couple of thousand next year. We think we can sell 10,000 or more in 2026. We think we can sell over 100,000 in 2027. We think we can do over $90 million in 2028. We think this unit is going to sell in the millions of units over time. This is a different market, and people just need to get their feet on the device to figure it out. So we're Glider. Thank you.
Questions?
I'll take the first one. Appreciate that. I mean, it seems like it'd be a great opportunity for gamers, and congrats on the Kickstarter campaign. Have you done any customer discovery on like the more moderate gamers to see their interest versus the hardcore gamers? As someone that plays like myself when I have time versus someone that plays all the time, I'd be curious the difference of thought around the need versus the want.
We haven't done any specific studies. We do find that it appeals to a broad range of people. We've had competitive gamers that love it because if they can change their setup and optimize it further, they'd love to do that within the competitive constraints that they're under. We've got a lot of market research to do. We've talked to all the big gaming companies. They don't have that research. It doesn't exist. It's a different device. We're trying to establish a space here. So we know that there are some gaps, and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive from the Kickstarter, the shout outs we've been getting on social media, and people feeding back on our Discord, which for those who don't know is like a big social media thing for gamers.
And to add to that, the variety of feedback we've gotten on Reddit and on Discord channels is just amazing. People are so creative. We actually don't think we've figured out the best use of this yet. We actually think that once gamers have this, and if anybody's seen Guitar Hero players or anything like that, these people will figure out how to use a device and get the most out of it. So I think we're yet to see what it's capable of. And mediocre casual gamers, I think, if you want to take a drink while you're playing Power World, you can't because you're holding down the key for 3 minutes building walls. And instead, you can just be holding it down like that, and you can grab a bite to eat, keep the Cheetos dust off your keyboard. Anyway.
Thank you.
I got a question as a non-gamer. Do gamers play this when they're just sitting on a couch? You see these commercials out there, and these football players are out there playing these games. It may be a different type of game, but
this is designed for seated use at a gaming rig.
Okay.
The VR market's the next market. It's taken a while to develop, but this is something you could slide under the couch and just pull out when you need to. Wireless, connected over Bluetooth.
About half of gamers, Michael, play at PCs sitting at a desk.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
this device sits right there, put it at your desk, and you're playing. I think console market is a smaller market than PC gaming. We do intend to get into the console market eventually. We're talking to some of the console makers, but it's actually a smaller market than PC, and PC market is growing. So we also are going to provide a way to tilt the device eventually, so that if somebody is playing on a sofa and they want to put it out a little farther, ergonomically, you can't push your heel down, and people with long legs. Anyway, that's.
Are they also looking at trying to make this like an Olympic sport?
Absolutely. I'll be asking for your help there.
Joshua.
No, it was awesome yesterday when I saw it. It's really easy to use. It was a lot of fun, and it was a great presentation. And we talked about it yesterday. There's disabled gamers, and I think you guys feel that need. Obviously, someone doesn't have the access of both hands, both arms. I think the foot pedals obviously aid in that. Great product. Congrats on the Kickstarter. Congrats on the presentation.
Thank you. Sabine, you must have a question.
Yes, could this feed into game development? I'm wondering whether you've talked to game developers and whether they are getting excited. It seems like if you have more input modalities, you might be able to increase functionality in ways you have not before.
We absolutely think that that's where we'll head, but until we get the product on the market, the game developers are too focused on their current market. So once we have the product in production and they can see it, then we could partner with a game company that wants to do a product that maybe it won't relieve the hand stress. It'll just make it even worse because they'll have to do their hands and their feet. And we've already had somebody do a competition with this at a gaming night. They had gamers come up and see how fast they could play a game with just their feet. We think this device is most useful in combination with the keyboard, mouse, or game controller, not feet only, but there's all kinds of options.
As a supplement, yeah. And I neglected to mention earlier, we've completed the Kickstarter and done a friends and family round. We're about to launch a seed round. We can get through manufacturing and make 1,000 or 2 devices, but to get this out there, we've relied heavily on Glider, the name, to do all of our marketing lift to this point. So we need to beef up our marketing programming. We've still got engineering to finish and operational support costs to cover.
We're already seeing conversations going on social media. We had a podcaster yesterday say, just all of a sudden blurt out that he had ordered a glider. And I'm sure that I think he had like 500,000 people listening to that podcast. So we think the word will get out.
Considering that this is in the prototype stage, how much work has gone into figuring out what kind of material you'll be using and where you're going to be mass producing it?
Well, 2 parts to that question. A lot of work's gone into try and figure out the mechanics and stuff like that. And we've got a really good working product that's 3D printed, but it's not ready. I can't sell a 3D printed product. It's just
He has sold a 3D product.
I have. I'm sorry. I
sold
shouldn't say I
3D
can't.
printed products to
I've sold them for I call them dev kits. But as far as manufacturing, so we're working with an industrial design firm. I wish I could show you the new design, but we're keeping it under stealth right now. It's sexy. And so, but we're working with a firm that designs and helps major gaming controller and mice manufacturers, the names that the gaming industry recognizes, and helps them design them and get them into their factories. And they're already talking to some factories, but I'm also talking to Texas-based manufacturing facilities, at least to get some of our early startup and see if we can make it here. That would even be better.
So I get your B2C strategy, your direct-to-consumer. You've got a phenomenal community that really on board. That's cool. Super expensive. So help me understand a B2B strategy that's applicable for your business.
That's an interesting one. We've talked with a couple of developers, game development groups. Being a new device like this in a new category is pretty tricky. You've got to show that the device is good. You can actually design something that works. You can actually manufacture it at a reasonable price point that people will buy. So I think a lot of people are kind of holding their breath and waiting on that. I can say that every development company and manufacturer that we've called on the phone and had meetings with, they've taken our calls. They're very interested in the outcome of this. Their production schedules go out for 18 or 24 months, and they've got it all planned out, but they'd love to slide something else in there without these big blockbuster titles.
Let me jump in. So I think that companies like Epic, who makes Fortnite and Rocket League, and they probably, in a way, they probably don't need our help to find more customers, but they are always looking. And there's also the second tier of game companies. I think that once we're on the market, there is definitely opportunities to partner on that. And we might give up a little margin to work with them, but I'd rather work with them than maybe, I wouldn't want to put it on the retail shelves if I can help it. Yeah, I mean, eventually, if there's enough demand, we'd love GameStop to hold it, but we're going to have to get our product. But I think the word of mouth, the podcasters, the influencers, all that, I'm not too, we're certainly,
Time.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, we're going to take a quick break. Harmony is going to be up when they come back. Please be back about 3:45. I know that doesn't give you very long, but we're trying to catch up a little bit. Restrooms are down at the end on the other side of the ballroom. Sorry to cut off the great conversations, folks, but we do need you to take your seats. About a 2-minute warning before we need to get started. You will have more networking time afterwards. Howdy. All right, let's try again. Howdy. All right, in an effort to keep us on time and keep TJ from killing me, we do need to get started again. One reminder, my staff asked me to pass me along, Cody in particular. Law firms, listen up, perk up your ears for just a second. You guys have a lot of prizes this year, same as we did last year. When you turn your potential prize winners in to Cody, you need to give them 3 options. You can rank them, and we'll do our best to accommodate. And you need to note whether they are business law, IP law, or both, all right? So if you haven't given that to Cody yet, please turn that in or clarify what you already have turned in. Thank you. Next up is going to be Harmony Desalting. Would appreciate you making your way up, and then Predict will be up next.
Good afternoon, everyone. Quantum Way, founder and CEO of Harmony Desalting, and we are on a mission to make more water cheaper. Why? Because the world needs more water, and specifically, Texas needs more water. Texas Water Development Board puts out a state water plan every 4 years. This is a figure from their latest water plan, and there's already a shortfall, water demand exceeding supply, and this is only projected to increase as more and more people move to the state and as water demand goes up. Fortunately, we do have a solution to this problem. Oh, before we get there, this is an excerpt from that report. What happens when there's a drought and it stops raining? What if we do nothing? Economic modeling indicates that Texas's businesses and workers could have lost approximately $110 billion in income annually in 2022. Job losses, if there had been a drought in 2022, could have totaled approximately $615,000, in 2020. This estimate is likely conservative. Water permeates basically all aspects of our lives, all aspects of the economy. It's really hard to quantify, but in a really bad drought, it's going to impact all of us. As I mentioned before, we do have a solution to this problem. Desalination is taking the salt out of salty water. You can treat it to the point where you can use it as drinking water or irrigation water, processed water. It's an established technology, and it's going to be part of the solution. Desalinated water costs about 70 cents per cubic meter or 250 gallons. So really, when you think about how much water that is, not that expensive. If you take that number, multiply by the global desalination capacity, 100 million cubic meters per day, the ratepayers all around the world pay about 26 billion each year. And just last year, $5 billion were invested into new desalination plants worldwide. Reverse osmosis is the workhorse of desalination. Practically all new desalination plants use this membrane process, which is a pressure-driven process as opposed to the older technology, thermal evaporators, essentially. This is a RO plant in Southern California, Carlsbad, San Diego. Now, reverse osmosis is going to be the future, but there are still challenges that remain that increase the cost and hurt the reliability of these processes, particularly in intense applications. Firstly, being high energy usage, and second, being membrane fouling. Now, we've developed a process which uses all the same equipment that you're seeing here, just in a different way. And we address this first problem by producing more water and less energy. Our batch process is the most energy efficient form of water desalination. To understand why, you have to think about why does regular RO use so much energy, and it has to do with the pressures. You're applying really high pressures to push fresh water through a membrane, and the way the regular systems work, you're always operating at the highest pressures. By reconfiguring the process to operate as a batch process, the salinity of the systems are changing over time. The osmotic pressures, which determine how much pressure you need to apply to produce fresh water, change over time, and our pressures are set up to change over time, producing the same amount of water. That green area you see between the green and the red curve, that's the energy savings that our process achieves. How do we do this? Again, it's a simple reconfiguration. We're not inventing new membranes. We're not inventing new materials. Basically, in the regular process, it's a once-through process. What we do is we take the retentate from the back of the system and we recycle it. And that's what gets us the osmotic pressure that varies over time and the pressure that varies over time. This process is easy to implement. We're exploring retrofits. We've got a pilot retrofit. That project just started up in March, but mostly exploring new installations. If you look at membrane desalination processes, think about the status quo being in this lower left-hand corner. We can think about processes in terms of energy efficiency and fouling resistance. You can add multiple stages. So rather than going up to that peak pressure, start at a lower pressure, work your way to the higher pressure, and you can save energy in this way, but these processes don't address membrane fouling in any way. If we move to a different family of processes, dynamic processes, ones that are not steady state, these processes address membrane fouling. Basically, by varying the conditions, you can stop bacteria from duplicating, or you can stop crystals from forming, but these processes don't provide any energy benefits. Semi-batch and batch processes essentially provide both energy efficiency and fouling resistance. There are a couple of these processes on the market now, and ours is the best. But technology is not everything, and what's really important in the water industry is reliable production of clean water. Plant uptime is a metric that designers and operators are very conscious of, and we are already establishing ourselves of having a track record of reliable water production. In the past 2 years, we've had 2 field demonstrations. These were technology bake-offs operating on real water, competing against other solutions. Basically, whoever makes the most clean water wins. We won both of those contests, one in brine concentration, one in wastewater reuse. And just last year, we were recognized by an international jury. This is a prize sponsored by the Saudi Arabian Water Corporation. They're the biggest users of desalination in the world. And an international jury of experts, including both industry experts and financiers, recognized us as a winner there. Our very first pilot was over in the southwest corner of Arizona, Yuma. There, you're inland, and with inland desalination, the problem is brine disposal. You'll see large brine disposal ponds that are dug up to hold the brine, wait for it to evaporate. And that's really expensive. What we were able to do is take that brine, reduce the volume by 5 times, or 83% reduction, going beyond the abilities of a regular RO process. And we've got pilots in other applications in the works, seawater desalination and produced water treatment. But pilots are not the end-all be-all. What we're really focused on is commercialization. These pilots are simply a stepping stone towards that. So we've got 2 methods of revenue. First, we're going to really focus on these small-scale systems. We'll build mobile pilot units, which we can ship to our customers, really get on site quickly, establish trust with the customers, and we'll do some tailoring of the pre-treatment that's done, and that's going to lead into capital sales of pre-built, pre-designed units. We'll also bring in some recurring revenue through service contracts, keeping up with the systems with remote monitoring, fleet-based learning, making sure that the water is flowing constantly. And we know how to do this. This is a photo from our pilot up in Canada last year. In addition, we want to take this technology up to the largest desalination plants in the world. There, we're going to have to play with other people in the industry. So we are in active negotiations with several players around the world to license out our IP in several applications. So here, it'll be licensing out for use by those entities. And we intend to stay innovative, continuing to develop new processes, work with advanced membranes, and particularly develop new insights. We've got lab tests going over in College Station, just outside town, so if you'd like to come and see our system, please get in touch. And this is our plan. We started out, this is based off of my graduate work at MIT. over the past couple of years, we've done a first round of piloting, all funded by non-dilutive grants. We've got a second round of piloting over the next couple of years. Also, right now, roughly $10 million in non-dilutive grants sponsored by various governments. Again, several applications, ramping up in size, ramping up in pressure, but we are raising $3 million to supplement that funding to get us through the next round of piloting and launch our commercial sales. This is our team. I've been working on batch reverse osmosis since 2017. Haig is here. He leads our business development and has a wealth of startup experience. Jenny Smythe is an applied physics PhD and has 8 years experience at Schlumberger Research. Our advisors are desalination experts, both in academia and industry. And we're making water cheaper. Let's make water together. Thank you.
You referenced a number of pilots. What's the scale?
Yeah.
What's the volume?
Great question.
At this point?
Yeah, so our 2 pilots to date have been roughly 2 gallons per minute. That comes out to 24,000 or 2,000 gallons per day. Our next coming pilots are getting larger. They range in scale from 10 gallons per minute, going up to 40 gallons per minute, hoping to have a last one confirmed, which will be 200 gallons per minute, which is really the basic building block of a large-scale desalination plant.
You mentioned being in licensing negotiations with a number of international players, and obviously the technology can be applied anywhere, right? Basically the entire globe would be interested. I'm wondering about your IP protection abroad. I see that you have a couple of patents that you're licensing dating back to 2016 and 18, but these are US patents only. And then there's a PCT filed last year, I guess, or a couple years ago. Given the time difference, I assume that's a different technology or different invention or aspect that's patented or that's patent pending in this PCT application. Can you elaborate on what's covered in the initial US patents and what's in the PCT? And how big a deal is it that you presumably don't have international protection for the original 2 patents?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. The original 2 patents are sort of more general process patents covering the batch row process generally. The second invention is pretty related. It's an improvement of the process. So pretty related, not a new process, and there are international protections there, as you mentioned. I think we don't intend to go around we don't intend to rely on our patents for a competitive advantage. I think the water industry really, people have to trust you. People have to trust that you know your technology, the limitations of your technology. They have to know that their plants are going to operate. So I think it really is our experience and our know-how with the process, and eventually building up the reputation for being reliable. And that's what we're going to rely on. And that's also why we're not going to just rely on this one process. We're going to build an innovation arm and develop other processes which will be protected potentially by IP or trade secret. And then a big part of what we'd like to do is with a fleet of small containerized systems, that gives you a lot of data on different water samples, and that is something that is really hard. Really helps to address a really thorny problem in water treatment. And I think we're in the best position to collect that data and learn from it and deliver value based on that.
So I want to dig a little bit into your competitive advantage. Batch RO has been around for a long time. This idea of going back and putting it back is also not necessarily novel. And so as you look at the other folks that are in the space that are doing something very similar, like you said, like, we're the best. Okay, how are you the best? Why are you the best?
Yeah.
Walk me through that.
Yeah. It's interesting to get that question because I put in that slide but anyways, how are we the best?
You want to go back to that slide?
You can go back to that slide if you'd like.
It's not, in terms of energy efficiency that's really where advantage
So
is.
how much more?
Say again?
How much more efficient are you over the competitors?
It's really tough to put a single number on this value because it depends on what your feed water is.
Sure, of course.
Depends on what your water recovery is. And I think where we want to go is pushing the limits of water recovery.
That's all great.
And that's
I'm
where,
looking for the answer, though.
and the reason we're doing that is because that's where our competitive advantage increases. Our competitive advantage increases as we shift where industry is operating.
So where are you today with regards to energy efficiency in comparison to your current competitors?
In comparison to, let's say, DuPont desalination process, 50% recovery of seawater. I don't have that number for you now, but I can get that for you right after this. Yeah. There's literature that was published on this recently. Didn't think to get that number into my head.
You laid out your timeline for your raise and commercialization, what, about 2 years you were saying? Have you given thought of what that would need for capital for that commercialization strategy?
Can you repeat the question?
So whenever you're going to commercialize, have you thought about what you're going to need to raise at that point in time? Or are you going to be already efficient enough?
We would raise additional rounds of financing, and that would depend on how quickly we want to ramp up manufacturing of the small scale skids.
Thank you.
When you increase the volume of water you're treating, do you have any idea as to what the impact will be? Because we desalinated about 500,000 gallons of water in near Chicago, and we tried both the batch process and batch RO and the traditional RO, and we saw problems with both. So have you looked into that? Because it's one thing to do a pilot test with smaller volumes going in and out, and you may not get the scale. As you scale, it's not going to be the same. So have you looked at that?
Are you referring to plant integration with a discontinuous? Yeah, we have looked into that. I think it sort of, I'm not familiar with the examples that you're referring to, so it would be great to connect. But once you get to a large enough scale, you can sort of stagger operation and have more of a continuous flow.
Quantum is a great pitch. Thank you for sharing it. Just want to point out one thing from the diligence packet we got. Thanks, pitch back. They're great. So just the product, it comes, Harmony Desalting's BR solution has a higher initial CapEx requirement, but desalinates and purifies water more efficiently. How much more of a CapEx requirement? And I'm guessing, is there do you meet in the middle where it's like, hey, we'll use the cheaper guys. It's not as efficient, it's not as sustainable, but they're certainly not that expensive. How do you compare in pricing, I guess?
I think roughly speaking, compared to regular reverse osmosis, we estimate 25 to 40% CapEx premium.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why we're pursuing high value applications. Basically, the applications we're pursuing are where is regular reverse osmosis not an option. If we can perform where regular reverse osmosis isn't able to, that's the best place to commercialize initially. And then we'll prove ourselves and be trusted in other applications.
And just a follow up, what's the break even for the customer? Is that like an additional 3, 4, 5, 6 months of using your system versus something currently on the market? How does that look?
It really it depends on the application. In terms of, brine disposal costs a lot when you're thinking about trucks coming in and out. So it could be a couple years or less.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm going to just read one of the questions on the board. What are the costs to desalinate a single gallon of water using Harmony compared to traditional methods? I think I kind of touched on that, but it brings it down to a gallon. So now we could metric to work with?
Well, a single gallon is, I mean, less than a cent.
Okay.
Yeah, fraction of a cent.
I think the question was about a comparison. Can you give a percentage comparison with your process versus traditional processes?
Percentage comparison, a generic reverse osmosis process, I'd say cost savings of 10 to 20%. But it's really, that's not what we're targeting as cost comparisons, but where we can enable
That's
something.
time.
Thank you.
Next up is Predict. Taurus Vascular, you're on deck. After this round finishes, we are going to ask companies' elevator pitch representatives to go ahead and start assembling. So if you need to get your stuff together or otherwise get ready, we're going to call for you to assemble after this pitch.
Thank you. Howdy.
Howdy.
My name is Himanshu Maheshwari. I am founder and CEO of Predict. At Predict, we are truly passionate about climate. Today, I'm going to talk about the innovative solution that we are developing for wind industry, where we are helping them save cost and improve the energy production as part of their ongoing operation. Following IRA in 2021, which is Inflation Reduction Act, there is a massive growth in the clean energy production. If you start to look at the number of infrastructure that's supposed to quadruple to be able to reach the moonshot by 2030, to reach the targets that we have, it needs to quadruple. At the same time, each infrastructure is growing in terms of size, going from an average 30-meter blade to 110 to 150 meter blades. So quadrupling in terms of size as well for each blade. Each blade is as long as the Kyle field. As long as it's a pretty large, substantial blade that we are developing. You can see that infrastructure itself is, trying to have one Eiffel Tower in the middle of the ocean. But imagine to meet the target, you have to have tens of thousands of this Eiffel Tower in the middle of the ocean, and then go and inspect them, go and manage them. There's a massive infrastructure that we are developing. We are still trying to figure out how to manage them, and that's where you can also see the pain points in the industry. Billions in losses have been reported by OEMs. They have a tremendous amount of warranty claims. The wind farm developers that are inheriting these assets, they have little tools or expertise to manage these assets in the long run for these assets. And that's where billions of losses have been reported. In fact, the German government had to go and save Siemens Gamesa last year because they had so much losses on their specific books. So with growth comes the pain point, and that's where we're looking to provide them the solution. The current solution are pretty much schedule-based. Every year they go in, do the inspection, either manually through rope access or by providing a drone's inspection. You conduct a visual survey of an asset, and you try to make an assessment of how much leading edge erosion you have, how much damage you have, how much wear tear you have, how much. So you kind of have to turn off the turbine and start to do those inspections and send the people the harm way. Our belief at Predict is going to fully automate the inspection process. We'd like to make it continuous, completely in situ, where our sensors provide an automated solution where throughout the year, no matter the weather condition, they are able to have the data on their mobile in terms of the health of their asset in the specific case. Our complete solution includes sensing, communication, and the analytics that goes behind it. Our IP is more towards the sensing itself. A lot of people in the marketplace, they are entering the market from the right side, where if you are from the Silicon Valley, you build a platform and do cool analytics for you, build a large language model for you, and tell you everything that's happening. But the reality is you don't even have a signature of that problem. And where we came from, based on our industry background, is from the left side, where we build what we call is a zero power sensor. The sensor is a nano-engineered material that goes through permanent transformation, or a sacrificial sensor based on the damage it's detecting. What that means is you don't need to power it continuously. Like if you have a cell phone, if you power it off, you won't sense anything. If you have a sensor, you need a power. But the way our sensor works, it goes through transformation itself that doesn't require power. You only require power for wireless network. So instead of requiring power for 80,000 seconds a day, you only need power for 80 seconds a day. So that's a huge difference in terms of little bit power that you need that you can harvest and use it for transmission on daily basis to understand the health of the asset. We first, once we communicate the data, we first build our models based on the simulated or synthetic data, and then the real field data is fed into it to calibrate and understand what the health of the asset is. Based on that, we can help our clients in terms of predictive maintenance when they have to go and plan for their leading edge production, when they have to go and plan for their next maintenance, and help them, because unplanned maintenance is one of the largest costs as they operate these assets in the field. This provides a tremendous benefit for them. These leading edge erosion kind of mechanism, they can reduce as much as 5 to 7% of their energy production if they not understand how they're losing the aerodynamic efficiency of their system. We can save them cost in terms of unplanned maintenance, as well as when they send out these heavy machinery to go out there and do the inspection, we can reduce the requirement and reduce the carbon footprint that's associated with these large infrastructure mobilization. We are blessed to have a strong traction in the marketplace. Just last month, we closed a grant with the UK Net Zero Technology Center, where we are in a position, part of the grant comes from the UK government, part of the grant comes from a Shell Game Changer program, which operates a number of wind farms themselves. In this case, we have resources to go from entire system development. So as part of the program, we'll be building our complete system that really looks like a easy tag on your car or tall tag in your car. It's a tape with a bunch of sensors, with a wireless antenna, and a solar cell to be able to harvest the energy. There's an adhesive in the back. You peel out the adhesive and stick it on your wind turbine. In our business model, we are only a technology provider. We don't send people out there. Anytime they are doing installations or end of warranty inspections or repairs, they can go install the sensors for themselves. We don't need to send the specialist people to go and install the sensors, thereby lowering the overall cost another order of magnitude, because typical installation of these systems are about 30 to 40% in traditional scenarios as well. In addition to that, we have a strong sales pipeline in terms of number of grants and pilot projects, so about 7+ projects, totaling about $1 million, in addition to the $750K grant, which you already signed for. Based on our experience, we are blessed to be in Houston. We have a very strong density of customers right in our backyard. That's interesting, I say. At the same time, we got our first grant from UK. So we have built an international network in addition to having a local density. But our goal is to have a direct sale to the end customer in this specific case, where we can work with the customer, provide them the value, where they can track the condition within the first year before they had hit the end of warranty, work with the OEM to solve the problems, and throughout the seasons, they can work on the system. Actually, this is the actual turbine where we are going to do the field trial early next year. The 11-month demonstration turbine of the Coast of 5 in UK. We'll install the full-scale system next year for measuring the blade, tower, as well as the floating. This is an offshore turbine, about 40 meters of water. So we'll measure the floating, not floating in this case, fixed foundation of the system. Post that, once we prove the products, we'll be working with the technology partners, O&M service providers, OEMs, to be able to install and scale the systems to the next level. Based on our experience, what we did when we looked at the product, we surveyed over 100 customers across 6 market verticals to look for applications where it's a strong market pull. We found applications with the pipelines. We found applications with the refinery for corrosion and insulations. We found applications with the power grids. We found applications with the wind turbines. But with the blades is where we really saw a strong pull given the amount of problems they had. Also, our technology fits in very nicely. When you have a motor, you can put a sensor because you have power. But when you have a blade, which is 150 meters long, to put a sensor at the end of the tip where you have power way far away from it, that means you have to either run the wire or put cables, put batteries on it. Both of them are not possible when you are running a wind turbine blades in the system. Whenever there's a large infrastructure, there is no power into it, that's where we shine. That's where our system becomes a very strong candidate for the marketplace. We are addressing a very large market segment. We deliver this system as IoT as a service. That means we have a setup cost and an ongoing subscription cost. It's a very similar model used by very many companies like Samsara. They just 2 years ago they went IPO and had more than $1 billion of ARR in this marketplace. That's a similar business model we are following. As I said, we have already closed the grant, have the sales, strong sales pipeline. Our belief was, based on our experience, was we can raise the funds and work with the customers to get the product market fit. As we are developing the product, we have a customer panel of 3 wind farm operators, along with a letter of support, which are bi-monthly checking our progress and reviewing our features to make sure that we build the features both in hardware and software, which meet the customer needs so that we can reach a product market fit in a much faster manner. Our ask is, we are looking for partners where we can do more pilots next year. Once we finish the products, we are looking to partners to pilot next year. At the same time, we'll be raising our seed round later this year, where grants helps us to build the product, but for the sales and marketing is where we look for venture funding to be able to scale up our business development process and build more capability in terms of analytics and AI as we grow our insights, pulling software insights. We have a strong team. As I referred to, I have 20 years experience. I have done tech to market for multiple technologies in the energy sector over the last 20 years, worked for small startups to large service companies, including corporate strategy, CVC, due diligence, and acquisition from the buyer side. My partners have done in the past, I am an Aggie. My partner is also an Aggie. Vamsi, he has done 20 years of work in analytics, strong experience in analytics. The third part is not Aggie. I will make him. But anyway, he has done double masters from LSU and have 15 years experience or more in terms of deploying wireless systems out there in the field for energy industry. We have had a strong ecosystem build, including part of MIT Startup Exchange, Mass Challenge. Last year, we were alternate and thankful to get an award. I truly appreciate that. And with the Rice University VCIC, we were noted most VC backable startup as part of their competition in this case. We are super excited about the growth. As the keynote speaker said yesterday, we are turning the headwind into tailwind for the wind industry, and we are looking to partner with many of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that presentation. Would you mind walking us through how it's being installed by the person, like the buyer themselves? You're saying that they're going to install it once they buy it from yourself. What's that process look like, and how many per turbine would you think?
We used to say lick it, stick it, and then forget it. That's a remote, lick it, stick it, forget it. But the way it's at a backing, it's adhesive backing from 3M. You take out the tape, just like if you install a tall tag in your car, if you install a easy tag, it's really adhesive backing. You take out the backing and you install in the system. We started our system development. So our sensor by itself has gone through I should have said, it comes from the MIT and they have used it for space industry. So it has gone through a tremendous amount of testing. What we are doing is building a system with commercial off-the-shelf components. So they are very well proven. They're the same adhesive that wind industry is used to using for leading edge repairs or various repairs that they do in operation. So they are very used to these adhesive that we're going to use for installation purpose. Once you install that, our gateway is on the base. So that sensor from the blade communicates with the gateway on the base and connect the data to the cloud for analytic purpose.
Thank you.
What's the cost of goods sold? The cost of goods sold and the price point for each of the systems?
Depending on the size of the turbine and what the value is, for example, for an offshore wind turbine, they spend about 150 to 200K per year for maintenance. Our cost will be 50K for the sensor systems and $5,000 subscription, minimum 3-year subscription for the analytics that we provide behind it. So our profitability we're targeting is 80% behind the system.
I have a question about when you deploy this at scale.
Yes.
One interesting thing about sort of wind farms is the possibility of RF interactions and RF kind of signals. You're going to be in an environment where you're going to be having these IoT vehicle things connecting. Have you looked into the possibility about whether or not you're going to be able to, and I'm talking out of ignorance here, like, are you going to be in the part of the frequency that's not going to be interfering with anything else that's actually happening in the wind farm?
That is correct. So we are using Bluetooth low energy from the blade to the node, and from the node, either we have cellular connectivity or we'll connect to the base where we have Ethernet connectivity and substation.
Right, so at scale, right, what's the possibility of
so-
interference from other devices that are actually
So
in the same environment?
in these communications, we are in touch with the operations team. And as I said, we are part of product committee is the operations team. And we have shown them the frequency and the tools that they're using, and we haven't had any pushback, at least from 3 big wind farm developers in that context.
But you haven't actually done any testing to see if actually you're going to be free and clear on the signal side.
So they, for example, the 11-mouth demonstration turbine, they have connection to cellular site. They said connect to cellular site. That's when you say RF communication. Typically, if we were using
It's not so much
RF,
communications, it's interference amongst the bands.
okay.
What bandwidth are you working in, and do any of those bandwidths kind of intersect with anything else that might cause interference? Or are you standing alone in that regard?
So we are pretty independent in anything. We use our own network in that context, and except for the cellular network that we connect to. In terms of bandwidth, that's a very good technical question. I can come back, but I haven't had that question. Having had hundreds of plus meetings, I haven't seen that concern from the industry at this point.
Himanshu, 2 questions. One is about the, what should I use? Sensitivity of your sensors to temperatures, high temperatures. Okay. That's one question. And then the second question is related to that. Have you tried the adhesives to stick your sensor onto the blade? Because in higher temperatures, a lot of the adhesives do not really work well. I've been through that before in Kuwait, working for the Army. But have you had any research done into that? You mentioned something about adhesives, but I didn't know.
So what we did was we are collaborating with a leading edge production provider. The way they work in leading edge production, they provide these shells that goes on the leading edge, and they use specific epoxy for installing the leading edge production. So what we did was, rather than reinventing the wheel, we just chose to use for the same for our field trial in terms of adhesive. We just want to make sure it sticks there and stays there. That's not our innovation per se. We're using the same industry standard as blade manufacturers and repair personnel are regularly using in the marketplace.
So existing combines would be also an opportunity, not just the new ones that would be deployed out?
Yeah, so we can install it in the current facilities. We can install it in the existing facilities. What we are looking at is the rate of change, how things are changing. So from the current condition to the changing condition, that's where we have. Even one of the aspects I didn't mention was about recycling. As you start to have the number of blades out there, the recycling places are filling up. What we can do by tracking the life throughout the life cycle, we can have an estimate of the capacity in terms of fatigue, in terms of loading you have consumed in your polymer, in your material, and then you can make a recommendation for repurposing these systems. Once you at the end, can you repurpose that for the lower loading conditions rather than filling it in the
because I would think the maintenance would be a lot more expensive on the existing units right now.
That is maintenance will be more expensive in the existing unit. The way we approach it is when we speak with the wind farm developer, they have certain touch points. They have at the time of installation, they have an end of warranty inspection. They have regular repairs for the leading edge. We're not asking them to go and do a run just for us to go and put the sensor. They anyway go and reach out to those blades on regular basis. As one of those locations, what even happens is, in fact, I used to be part of the offshore. In the beginning part of my career, I went offshore in some of the facilities to install things. Even after the repair, they don't know what happened to the repair. If the repair was effective, not effective, how, when do they have to go and do repairs again, check back again. They can put these sensors at that time and start to see impact of what's the rate of change are and is that repair working or not working in this case.
I'd like to relay a couple of audience questions. One is, what is it that the sensor is sensing? And the other one is what does prevent other energy companies from using this technology? What are the barriers for them?
That's a great question. What we did was we looked at 3 major failure modes for the system. One is a leading edge erosion, the second was transverse crack, and then the unknown flutter or vibration in the system. So in the sensor system, we are covering those three as part of it. We can add more, but then we need more power or bigger system. So, but for now, for the purpose of our base unit, we are using three systems in this case. Our proprietary is the leading edge. Trying to measure leading edge, the only way you can do right now is NDT, or you provide a fiber optics based system. Both of them will be at least 100 times more expensive than what we can do in the marketplace at present. Your second question. Yes, the technology is patented. We have a portfolio of patents from MIT. It's about half a dozen patents, 4 US granted and 4 PCT. That's what stops them in the market. It has gone through 4 years of qualifications, that gone through very extensive work. I'm sure there are smart people everywhere. They'll come up with more smarter things. But as far as this is concerned, we have barrier to market in terms of a exclusive access to the proprietary technology. 30 seconds, I can share my motivation. I used to be working in the offshore field when I started my career, and I can't swim, and I have a fear of heights. So when I was standing on the side of a scaffold on a deep water rig, it kind of hit me. I need to build something better. That was my motivation behind building a smart sensor system where you don't have to send people on the side of a scaffold on a side of a facility. But thank you so much for the opportunity.
Torus Vascular, while you're getting mic'd up, I need to get everybody's attention that is an elevator pitch presenter. You guys need to go ahead and assemble out in the Mockingbird hallway. So go out the back doors and go around registration and assemble. So each non-finalist team, there are 13 of you, your elevator pitch representative needs to step out in the hallway so TJ can help you get lined up. This is our last presentation, and then we'll take then we'll be switching into elevator pitches.
Can you hear me? Okay, there we go, that works. Hi, my name's Matt Kuhn. I'm co-founder and CEO of Torus Vascular. Our mission at Torus Vascular is to transform the standard of care for treating patients with aortic aneurysms. We're developing a small nitinol stent to prevent pressure buildup in an aneurysm and help drive better long-term outcomes for patients. And I'm going to give a little bit of a clinical background to explain why this matters or why we care. So an abdominal aortic aneurysm, or AAA, is a potentially life-threatening disease. It's characterized by the rapid growth of the aorta, which is the largest artery in the body. And we like to think of it as a continuously inflating water balloon or a ticking time bomb. Detonation of this time bomb is a catastrophic event. It's typically sudden without warning. Less than 20% of patients with a ruptured aorta end up surviving. It's highly lethal. So when we find AAA early, the current standard of care is to implant a stent graft. And the objective of this procedure is to place a stent graft across an aneurysm. And it's basically like relining or reinforcing a pipe. You're trying to reroute the arterial blood through the stent graft and eliminate pressure in the sac. The problem is that for 50% of patients, about half of all patients, this procedure fails due to a complication called endoleaks. So what is an endoleak? An endoleak is kind of like a fuse continuing to burn. An endoleak is the leakage of blood into the aneurysm sac after EVAR, or endovascular aneurysm repair. Typically, this happens because we get a poor fit between the stent graft and the aneurysm. Aneurysms are like sweet potatoes at the grocery store. They come in every single weird shape and size. Stent grafts, there's a pretty limited selection to choose from. If left untreated, an endoleak leads to continued aneurysmal growth and pressure buildup, and it can also lead to rupture and be fatal. This is where we come in. This has been a problem that's remained unsolved for about 30 years. We have a really simple just addition to this procedure. We place a small nitinol stent or a shunt in between the high pressure aneurysm sac and the low pressure nearby vein. It's called the vena cava. It's the largest vein in the body. We prevent buildup of pressure from endoleaks by providing a drainage route for them to return back to the venous system. And here's how we know it's going to work. There are a few cases of patients that have spontaneously developed an aortocaval fistula, which is a very fancy term for a hole. These patients have developed a hole between the aneurysm sac and the vena cava. These patients do wildly better than the patients that don't have a fistula. For context, a perfect procedure, an aneurysm will continue to grow by a few millimeters every year. For patients that have a fistula, we see shrinkage by 40 millimeters in the first year alone. And this is like seeing someone run a 2-minute mile. It's a crazy difference from the expected standard of care. And we have this eureka moment that if Mother Nature can do this by accident, what if we developed a device to do this purposefully and repeatedly and controllably and safely? And that led to the inspiration and development of Taurus and our technology. We're confident that this will totally redefine the standard of care for how we treat these patients. And we've diligently validated the merit of our technology, of the concept, with clinicians, KOLs, and strategics. From a business model perspective, our goal, our long-term goal, is that every single EVAR procedure, every patient that's treated for a AAA, will also prophylactically receive our procedure, our technology, to prevent endo leaks. This will be the first preventative solution for endo leaks. We're expected to sell this for about $7,500 each, and it's going to be covered under existing reimbursement codes for the EVAR procedure. Those reimbursement codes pay about $45,000 per procedure, so there's ample room for a technology like this. And our competitors are difficult to use, they're ineffective, and they're super expensive. The most common treatment for an endo leak is to try to plug the leak with basically a super glue. Medtronic's Onyx product is used off-label. It's literally liquid gold. It costs $2,500 per milliliter, and on average, 3 to 10 milliliters are used every case. So hospitals are currently spending $7,500 to $25,000 on super glue, and it doesn't work. 40% of the time, patients are coming back in for multiple endo leak embolizations. We're providing something that's far easier to use. We're standardizing the approach for endo leak management. And most importantly, we're driving better long-term patient care by facilitating sac shrinkage and lowering the intervention rate. There are 250,000 procedures every year to treat AAAs. And at a $7,500 price point, that represents a total market opportunity of about $2 billion a year. We're not claiming that we're going to get every single procedure. So even a 10% market share would be $190 million a year in potential revenue. But the market's actually a lot larger than that. We only treat the 25 percentile worst case patients because the current treatments are so poor, and over the long term, we usually wait until patients absolutely need treatment. If we provided a solution that could improve safety, improve the long-term outcomes, we could lower that threshold for intervention and open up this market to these underserved patients. We're a small but agile team. Myself and my co-founder, Dr. Billy Cohn, we've been working together for over 6 years, probably on a dozen different technologies. He's been a good friend and mentor of mine. He's actually our largest investor. And if anyone knows Billy, he's a rock star, immensely successful cardiothoracic surgeon, prolific inventor and magician, and has exited companies in the past couple of years for a total of $650 million. Between the two of us, I think we have a shared 40 patents, and I just hit my 50th last week. And then we're joined by an amazing supporting cast of clinicians, experts, KOLs, and strategic advisors from companies like J&J. We're a spin-out of the Texas Medical Center Biodesign Program. TMC's Biodesign Program resourced us with about $300K to get off the ground. That allowed us to do early patent protection, prototype development, and animal studies. We've done some pitch competitions and accelerators along the way. Our patent portfolio consists of the initial patent, which is filed and owned by TMC. We have an exclusive worldwide license to that patent, and we've since expanded that with our own Taurus-owned patent. We have plans to further expand into robotics applications, different use cases for our technology. To date, we've done 4 large animal studies and 2 fully perfused cadaver studies, so mock procedures to show safety, efficacy, feasibility of our procedure and technology. And we're planning on doing chronic animal studies starting this year. We've been raising our $1.5 million seed round. We've done a soft close on 1.3 in March, so looking to fill out the rest of the round sometime this year. But we have enough capital to kick off some of the heftier product development and animal studies. We're a class 3 PMA, which it's going to be a long time before we reach market. Your average PMA takes 7 years and $130 million in venture capital to get to market. But our primary exit strategy is acquisition. Companies like J&J, Medtronic, they actually prefer to acquire technologies like ours, class 3 risky PMAs. On average, a cardiovascular device, class 3, is acquired pre-regulatory approval after about 4 years of development. For us, that would put us at about 4 years, or 2027, and market comps are about 500 million. And then our anticipated acquirers could be any one of the 4 current market leaders, including Medtronic, Cook, Gore, and Endologics. They all have about the same market share, and endographs, these EVAR devices, are a fully developed product. They've existed for 30 years. There really isn't a lot of room for innovation of these core product platforms. So these companies are looking for ways to jostle for market share and show differentiation compared to their competitors. Our product is brand agnostic turbocharger for endographs to improve the core performance. So any one of these acquirers could now generate revenue off of their competitors' procedures because our technology would be used with any one of them. And I'm a little bit early, but wanted to open up for questions.
This isn't your first rodeo.
Good mentors.
No, this is good. So Billy Cohn, I met him a couple of months ago here at the Innovation Committee.
Yes, sir.
And what you guys have done with this and other companies are amazing. And you're finding a problem and you're solving it very efficiently.
Thank you.
I've got a question about your team.
Sure.
So you're raising 1.5, you're going to be going through the next steps. Who are the next group of folks you're going to be adding onto your team? And what are the holes that you're hoping to fill in adding those people on board?
We desperately need a CTO. Tyler, I think you mentioned this. I mean, early stage CEOs, you got to wear too many hats. I'm an engineer by training. To date, me and Billy have done the bulk of the work, but we've reached the level of sophistication and development of a company that we need to expand the team. So I just hired my first engineer last week, but I need the operators, the ones that have experience, that can make strategic decisions. Eventually, we're going to need a new CEO, which is kind of the name of the game. I'm totally fine with that. So yeah, I think near-term CTO, probably getting the established vascular surgeon CMO sometime in the next couple of years.
And will that be part of this capital raise, or is that sort of anticipated to come in a little bit later?
CTO for this capital raise, Series A, expanding the executive team. Still got 9 minutes.
I have a quick question. As a class 3 device, do you have any estimate around what you think the pivotal study need to look like? 200, 300, 500, just a smaller one?
This is a great question. I honestly don't know the answer to this. One of the challenges with the disease space for AAAs is that there is no good large animal model. So almost all the work is done in first-in-human studies, which is typically done outside of the US to leverage that data before bringing it to the FDA. So it could be 50 patients, it could be 300 patients. We're planning on doing a first-in-human study in New Zealand sometime next spring. And the plan is to use off-the-shelf medical supplies to replicate the procedure and show safety, show efficacy. If we're able to quantify the magnitude of the effect of that first-in-human study compared to historical controls, if it's significant enough, that will heavily dictate the number of patients we have to use for a clinical study to power the study.
So let me do a follow-up on that. Why New Zealand? I mean, there's lots of other places you could think of doing your first in human. What's special about that country or that population at this point? Or the regulatory path?
Yeah. I think for most cardiovascular devices, the typical first in human is actually Paraguay, Asuncion, Paraguay. That was our plan. We actually structured this whole raise with the idea that we'd use $1.5 million to do chronic animal studies, expensive 6-month studies, and generate data that would recruit or convince a PI that they'd want to lead our study. We found that PI super early. We found them in January, and they're located in New Zealand.
Got it.
We have an audience question saying, why not fix the leak problem directly rather than a secondary fix? So what's, I guess, the problem with adjusting the stents to different geometries? Have there been any efforts of addressing that problem directly?
Yes. Actually, I want to go back and see if it's not too far back. There was a product called the Nelix device, which was developed and commercialized by Endologics. This device actually worked super well in preventing endo leaks. It's basically, it's a bifurcated stent graft with a balloon around it. And you'd implant the stent and inflate the balloon. It would take the shape of the aneurysm. And then you would fill it up with a curable glue, basically, and it would solidify. And there was no opportunity for leaks to form. The problem with the Nelix graft is that once it's solidified, if the aneurysm remodeled itself or grew a little bit or shifted, you could no longer remove that graft easily, and it would require a super invasive surgical procedure to pull out the device. It ended up being recalled, despite it being a very good endo-leak solution. I would argue on bias that our product is a direct fix for endo leaks. Technically, we're not plugging the leak, we're actually just giving it an outlet. But it's the same way if you had a leaky basement that was prone to flooding, you could find the crack in the wall to patch it, or if you put in a drain in the floor, they both yield the same solution.
Matt, it was a great presentation. A question, because I think it piggybacks off this, is you already spoke to the practicality of, hey, this solution could actually be a proactive solution where an aneurysm is forming, and you could use this as a pressure relief valve early on. What do you think in that timeline or continuum to where you get to that point, or are you guys going to be bought out so it won't matter?
Hopefully the latter, but I can't publicly say that.
You just did.
Did I? Oh, they're not recording this. That's totally fine. It's a similar answer to Tyler's question on what is the clinical study going to look like. It's all going to depend on what is the magnitude of the effect. And full transparency, we're a super early stage medical device company. There's a lot of testing to be done. To justify, a preventative technology, the question is always, are you using this on patients that otherwise would not have needed it? And how do you know, what is the threshold? What is the decision point to make that decision? I don't know. It'll come down to cost concerns and the level of the patient outcomes.
Back to your point that you're saying you are providing a direct solution. Could you do without the stent altogether and just drain?
Yeah, that's part of our planned patent expansion. Yes, so that would be an incredibly disruptive technology. If we could forego the need for the EVAR procedure altogether, our device is way smaller and way cheaper than those devices. The procedure is a lot easier to perform, and from a plumbing physics standpoint, if we're putting a hole in between those two pipes, we're locally reducing pressure, locally reducing resistance. And aneurysm growth is a function of pressure and resistance. So maybe there's an argument that we could reduce pressure and stave off aneurysmal progression, maybe even reverse it. But the clinical risk is a lot different whenever you're starting to shunt significant blood volumes from the artery to the vein. Can lead to left-sided heart failure or right-sided heart failure. So it'll be a trade-off, but that's our long-term goal. If we could show that, that would be an incredibly disruptive technology.
And are there any other medical problems that you could solve with the same core technology, adjusted in some way?
I think this is another question where I'm supposed to say the answer is yes. There are a few intra-atrial shunts. There's a company called Alleviant, Corvia. There are technologies to put a hole in between the left and right atria to offload atrial pressures. So we technically could use it for that application. It wouldn't be a perfect use case. But no, we're betting the horse on this being, because it's such a pronounced unmet need, if we're able to show safety and efficacy. It's an easy acquisition by a Medtronic, by Gore. It's a simple catheter that will fit well into their supply chain. So until the data shows that we need to find a different way to pivot, we're going to stick with Endolix.
For those patients that had fistulas naturally develop and they saw that positive effect, were there any negative effects that they saw on their lifespan or any physiology?
That's a great question. I imagine there probably are. The case studies are written almost from a point of view of surprise. It's an unexpected outcome. So fistulas, like an aortic cable fistula, typically require immediate surgical revision. It's only in the past couple of years that we've seen those fistulas form after EVAR, and the patient case studies are written from this standpoint of we expected these patients to do poorly. They're actually doing not only okay, they're doing way better than our typical patients. There are risks like pulmonary embolism is probably the most significant one. An aneurysm doesn't look like what I had up on the slides, like this clean red sphere. It's typically muddy, so it's full of cellular debris and blood clots. By providing a drainage pathway, maybe we're freeing a pathway for clots to end up in the venous system and go to the lungs. I'm not a clinician, but pulmonary embolism is actually pretty well tolerated unless you have massive clots, and we'd be talking about small breakoffs.
Given the relative simplicity of the device, did you have any indication of the likelihood of getting your patents through, your patent application filings, getting those issued?
Yes. First patent is focused strongly on methods to try to be as broad as possible. The newest patent is much more specific on design and shape, design improvements of the stent. Stents as a landscape of prior art, most of it's public domain because the field is so old. So our strategy is to be as ambitious as possible with our patent portfolio. Let the USPTO tell us what they think is coverable for our inventions. If it turns out that it's all public domain, we're a class 3 PMA anyway. So as long as we keep our first mover advantage and get to market, any of our competitors also have to follow the same pathway for a PMA. There's no predicate.
One from the crowd. What inspired the company name?
I'm a nerd. It's a pun. So Taurus, spelled Taurus, the astrological sign. The word Taurus, Torus, is a mathematical term. It's a geometrical term to refer to a donut or a wormhole. And our early stent designs were hourglass or wormhole shaped. So I liked the homonym.
You are a nerd.
I am. Shamelessly. Thank you.
All right. Finals judges, it's time for y'all to go make some decisions. All right. You can go out one of these doors. You're going to be escorted into one of the elevator pitch rooms right here. Probably the first door would be better because into one of the pitch rooms that we used this morning. While those guys and gals are going to deliberate, we are going to hear some elevator pitches. Just a few notes. Prize sponsors, if you haven't turned in your prize selections yet to Cody, we need you to do that as soon as possible. Cody is in the back here in the blue. If you don't have his cell number, and going to text him, but we prefer that way. Text, email, or you can go back and have a chat with him. Please do turn it in. Law firms, you need to do your top 3 plus the type of prize. Aggie Angel Network, Matt Kibido asked me to pass along that you guys are going to start your private deliberation for your investment prize in one of the Mockingbird rooms as well. So if you're in here and representing Aggie Angel Network and an investor in their prize, go ahead and step out and head over to one of the Mockingbird rooms. The rest of us are going to get started on the elevator pitch competition. So I'm going to step up here because I got a couple slides to show you. So this is a unique part of our competition. We want to give everybody that didn't get the chance to pitch their long form up here on stage an opportunity to give you a 1-minute quick elevator pitch. We are actually, I say we, I'm not voting, y'all are voting, okay? And we're going to do that using the same Slido setup we had before. So it's going to be back on that page, and I'll show you exactly where to go here in just a minute. Each company gets 1 minute. There are 13 companies, if I do my math right. And assuming we found Articulate Labs, did we find them, Claire? Okay, cool. All right. 13 companies. Remember, we had one company, Bike Trail, drop out due to illness. So 13 companies. This includes the alternates. We're going to be rating each team on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 to 5 stars. 1 is the lowest, 5 is the highest. Voting is going to be open until 5:20. This process we're going to use allows you to edit your votes. So you vote and then come back. I recommend that you vote as you go, right? Meaning go with your gut, select a star rating, and then if after you've heard a few more, you decide you want to change your rating, it's fine. You can go back and do that. I would also recommend that because you're going to see all the questions at once, you submit those questions every 4 or 5, or you can do it every one if you want to, because then it saves it. And then it gives you an option on the next page that you can edit and come back and change any of your votes. So we're going to start with a practice vote, but why don't you guys go ahead. We had a Slido screen up. Can y'all pull the Slido screen? There we go. That's cool. You can go to this screen or go back to the same spot if you were participating in Q&A. It all works the same. You don't even have to use the app. You can go straight to this URL. Anybody having trouble finding it? All right. We would appreciate you using, you actually typing your name in. That helps us make sure that these are folks that are actually attending the conference. If it comes down to a tiebreaker and we get a bazillion anonymous votes, we're going to rule out the anonymous votes. So please do put your name in. And I'm also going to give a huge thank you to Susan, who's sitting here in the front row. She's been helping me put all this together, and she's going to be head down trying to make sure this all flows correctly. Anything else? So let's go ahead and try the practice vote. So you'll go in at that URL, then you select polls in the top right. That's same page, click polls. Should be a practice question as the first one. So. Yeah, we'll find out here in a second. I promise. All right. Anybody having any trouble? Okay, got your votes in. All right. They still trickling in, or you able to tell if they're slowing down? Yeah. All right, pull it up in your smartphones, folks. We'll go fast once the teams get going, but I want to make sure as many people as possible get a chance to give this a try. This also sets a baseline for us so that we know about how many people are going to vote each time through. Yeah, please. Yeah, that's a good point. Using the system, hit send after you vote for that first team. Thank you, Lindsay. Yep. Scroll all the way to the bottom and hit send. All right. We're learning too. The old app we used, if you participated in previous years, we did it through the app. The new one we're using doesn't offer that. So Susan and the rest of the team helped us figure this out on the fly this afternoon when we realized it wasn't going to function right. So. And then we come back and edit. Yeah, you can edit responses here in a minute. So after you find out how terrible your TNVC team is. All right, cool. All right. Tell us how we did. I think we did pretty well. Yeah? Good 5-star rating. Yeah, 5 stars? All right, 5 stars across the board. Amazing. All right, so now you know how to do it. As we get into this, all right, I'll start slow so you can vote on the first 2 or 3 companies. But after we get going, I'm going to speed up, and we're going to rapid fire through these so we don't cut too far into our time having beverages next door. So Anybody have any issues, questions, concerns before we start running with this? All right, so we're gonna have 13 companies, 1 minute each. And we are gonna have a 1 minute countdown on the screen for the companies. And I am gonna cut them off at that time. They know this, so I apologize in advance for if I sound a little rude. One final note, just on perspective, as you are grading these companies, don't just rely on like how charismatic the presenter is, how showy. Think about this as if you are an investor. Did that elevator pitch elicit enough response, enough interest from you that you want to go back and talk to them more about investing in that company? That is the primary criteria that an investor would think about if they were riding in an elevator for 1 minute. Do they want to have a deeper conversation? All right. And hopefully a few of you will want to have deeper conversations after you hear from one of these companies. All right. We ready with our first company? Good luck, guys.
Howdy. Over my 16-year career in technology commercialization, the #1 problem I see companies have is access to manufacturing, especially American manufacturing. We're harnessing the power of 3D printing and the incredible engineers at Texas A&M University to bring technologies like these to the market. The Orca cooler wheel you can find in Walmarts all across the Midwest. It's produced off the largest 3D printed metal tool in North America. The motor boot was designed, engineered, and manufactured less than 2 blocks from where you're sitting.
So Additive at Scale is a smart manufacturing company that encompasses an engineering firm with the ability to educate, develop, and train our future workforce. We're implementing automation and deploying turnkey solutions that enable companies and individuals, like many in this room, to innovate and scale their manufacturing efficiently and cost effectively. Thank you.
We're Additive at Scale.
Thank you, Additive at Scale. Next up, Arc Power Tech.
Good afternoon. My name is Charlie Gay. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Arc Power Technology. We're a spinoff from the University of North Texas, where prototype samples of thin, lightweight, flexible batteries are being made. We're commercializing what's called lithium sulfur. It's an approach that can produce about twice as much energy density as traditional lithium ion batteries can, at a cost that's lower than what commercial production is today, because we have advanced reel-to-reel coating technology to use. We can flex, and I don't know if you can all see, but this is lighting up the LEDs here in my hand. We have a customer for our initial production that will be using this to track inventories in military base establishments by using this as the power system and an audio QR code.
Time.
Thank you for the opportunity here today.
Next up, Articulate Labs.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Josh Rabinowitz, co-founder and CEO of Articulate Labs. Our company has developed platform technology to address gaps in access to physical medicine and as well as efficacy of physical medicine using gait synchronous or movement synchronous electrical muscle stimulation. The first application of our technology is going to focus on addressing quadriceps or thigh muscle weakness for individuals who are coping with chronic knee conditions or recovering from knee surgery. 15 million in the former group, 1 million in the latter group, altogether creating about 27 billion in direct and indirect expenses every year. We are currently testing our devices at West Point. We are also looking at testing our devices with the U.S. Olympics and Paralympics National Medical Center. We're now looking for more opportunities to collect clinical data on our devices and to meet with more orthopedic surgeons, physical therapists, sports medicine specialists, and anyone involved in durable medical equipment supplies. If you or anyone you know are in that in those categories, we'd love to talk.
Time.
Thank you very much.
Before I move on to the next company, go ahead and scroll down and hit submit. Make sure everything's getting recorded okay. Anybody having any trouble? Seems to be working pretty smoothly. Okay. Cool. Okay. Next up, Clarisim.
Howdy. In a show of hands, how many of y'all have had a surgery ever? All right, that's almost everyone. So in preparing for your surgery, your surgeon took 2 steps. They reviewed your imaging, and then they operated. And I know this because currently there's no functional alternative for complex, challenging, or unique cases. So Clarisim is changing that lack of personalization in surgical planning. In about 30 seconds, we can take your patient scan and turn it into a 3D virtual model that the surgeon can use to operate on while seeing, feeling, and hearing your anatomy in a surgically relevant way. It's a realistic, patient-specific video game. We're about 6 months old, and in that time, we're active in 3 hospitals across North America, and by August, we're on track to have paid installations at 2 of the top 5 hospitals, 2 of the top 15 hospitals, we're not that good yet, in the country. Again, my name is Kunal Shah. Hope to see you guys at the bar later. Thank you very much.
Next up, cryodesalination.
Howdy.
Howdy.
Hi, I'm Billy Buxbaum, CEO of Cryodesalination. Today, 2.7 billion people don't have enough water. Due to climate change, this problem is getting a lot worse. By 2050, it'll be 5 billion people. Desalination is part of the solution, but current technologies are far too expensive. Cryodesalination provides a lower cost alternative. We're a fraction of the cost of thermal desalination or reverse osmosis with lower carbon emissions. We're able to do this because instead of pushing water through a membrane or boiling it, we go the other way. We freeze it. And when salt water freezes, the ice is salt-free. Others have tried to do this, but they couldn't do it at industrial scale. But we found a way, and we've patented a way. Cryodesalination is a game changer that provides affordable water for a very, very, very thirsty world.
Next up, Ember Sleep.
Do you snore, or does someone you know snore? If you answered yes, you wouldn't be alone. Sleep apnea is a common condition. 1 in 5 people in the US have it, and it also has terrible health consequences, such as heart attack, heart failure, and stroke, just to name a few. Well, right now, there are CPAPs. The problem with those is that they're uncomfortable, and about 50% of people will stop using it after just 1 year. There's Inspire, which is a surgery that activates a nerve to open up the airway. This works great. The problem is it's invasive, it's costly, and not all patients are going to qualify for the surgery. Well, at Ember Sleep, we're building the next generation of sleep apnea treatment. And guess what? We can do the exact same thing that Inspire does, yet without the surgery. So I'm Aaron Glick. I've been treating patients for sleep apnea for nearly a decade. And yes, I'm a recovering dentist. But I'd like to talk with you later after this about Ember Sleep. And thank you very much.
Pause for just a second to let y'all scroll down and save. Next up is HP Tech AI.
11.5 billion tons of freight is moved in the U.S. every year. Everything you see, touch, everything you ate, drank, it was all on a truck at some point. America runs on trucking. However, there's a growing problem. Truck drivers are getting old. There's a rapidly rising shortage of truck drivers. My name is Mike Ashley, and I'm the CEO and founder of HP Tech. We have a technology that can multiply the productivity of drivers by 2 to 4 times. The technology is called heart platooning, and it allows for a truck to be driven by a human up front and autonomous vehicles to quite literally be physically tethered behind the leader. So we fill the truck driving shortage, we reduce operating costs by up to 40%, and the United States Marine Corps is paying us to develop this for their ground-based anti-ship missile systems. Thank you.
Next up, Illumiros.
We all know that surgery is a key modality for the treatment of cancer, and it usually offers the best possibility for survival for patients. But surgical outcomes are suboptimal, especially for patients with pancreatic cancer. Only 20% of these patients are eligible for surgery, and 85% undergo recurrent surgery. So, the best outcome is achieved for these patients when you remove the tumor, when you confirm clean margins, and when you preserve healthy tissue. And but the question is, how do surgeons achieve this if they cannot see what they can operate on? And Illumaras is developing the technology to help surgeons overcome this challenge. And we're developing a metabolic biomarker linked to a medical imaging agent to illuminate cancer while having surgery. Thank you.
Next up, Paradigm Robotics.
By the time I finish this pitch, one U.S. firefighter will be injured and searching for humans in a burning building. Firefighters nationwide are killed searching for humans inside structural fires. The problem has never been solved until today. Introducing Firebot, the world's first high-temperature resistant, remotely controlled search and rescue robot designed to enter structural fires and other hazardous situations to efficiently search for signs of human life and provide life-saving, mission-critical situational awareness. Firebot mitigates tens of thousands of injuries, saves dozens of lives, and saves over $6 billion in direct medical expenditures. Firebot is the world's hottest robot with 23 novel innovations. Firebot's award-winning technology revolutionizes firefighting, unlocking thousands of use cases for 25 partners across the country and the firefighting, emergency response, and oil and gas industries. Paradigm Robotics is transforming robotics, building advanced, affordable, and rugged robots for the most dangerous and hazardous environments. Join us and let's bring our firefighters home safe. Thank you.
Next up, Paradox Health.
Hi, everyone. How you doing today? Good. Very nice. I want to ask about Medicare. Who knows what Medicare is or knows someone with Medicare? Yeah, that's a lot of people. It should be everyone, honestly, so you guys should know that. But let's ask a question. When you see your doctor, how much time do you have? Not much, right? 7 minutes? How can you possibly tell them about your 2 or 3 comorbidities, about your heart failure that you went to your last doctor? It's a mess. I'm a doctor. My name is Omar Motar, and I was frustrated by this system. I left medicine behind to solve this problem. And what I began to understand was that your 7 minutes has been taken over by 23 minutes of paperwork. That's ridiculous, very ridiculous. So at Paradox, we said no more to that. We reject the status quo of these paper, switching to digital, email, texting, all that stuff. We made it simple and seamless. At Paradox Health, we want to focus on transparency. So we made an AI-driven chronic disease management tool to simplify the workflow for everyone, including the patient. That's a paradox, work less but better, but that's us. Thank you very much.
Next up, Pike Robotics.
Storage tanks are vital for and enable the society we have today, allowing you to have gasoline in your vehicle to drive to work and PVC to build your homes. However, they're also large contributors to greenhouse gases. One way to limit this is to have proper functioning roof seals. These seals will fail over time, however, leaving the tank vulnerable to fire, product losses, and fines from the EPA. The state-of-the-art for maintaining these assets is to shut down the tank and send humans into confined spaces to perform these federally required inspections. Hi, my name is Connor Crawford, mechanical engineer and CEO of Pike Robotics. We've developed an autonomous explosion-proof robot that replicates and improves upon this inspection process without endangering human life. We performed pilot studies across the Gulf Coast with Phillips 66, Chevron, and Shell. We won $300,000 from a National Science Foundation grant to certify this robot. We're a couple weeks away from filling our $700,000 pre-seed round with the Baylor Angel Network. We're transforming inspection of energy facilities.
Next up, Solidec.
Hello, my name is Ryan Duchanois, co-founder and CEO of Solidec, a climate tech startup based in Houston, Texas. At Solidec, we are redefining chemical manufacturing to make it safer for people and the planet. The chemical and petrochemical industries account for 40% of industrial carbon emissions today because they use fossil resources both as an energy source and as a feedstock. For that reason, we are making chemicals and fuels at Solidec using only the most sustainable resources on the planet, water and air. In doing so, we eliminate carbon emissions associated with chemical production, and we can make chemicals and fuels anywhere in the world. That means we eliminate the cost and safety risks associated with chemical distribution and storage. At Solidec, we are on a mission to redefine chemical manufacturing, reverse decades of emissions, and generate sustainable, low-cost chemicals and fuels for years to come. Thank you.
Next up, Southwest Yeast Lab.
When you're at the end of a long, hard day, ready for that buzzed relief from your favorite alcohol beverage, you have yeast to thank. Yeast is responsible for making the alcohol in all our favorite wine, beer, and spirits, an over $500 billion market here in the US. And it plays a crucial role in cell research, vaccines, and food production. Southwest Yeast Lab is committed to providing the best service and the best yeast to Texas breweries. Our real value lies in our locality. Building these relationships, providing unparalleled service, and saving these brewers thousands of dollars is how we've been able to gain so much traction, with over $100,000 of revenue in our first real year of production. Now, we're continuing to grow throughout this state and have plans for expansion nationwide. And have plans for expansion nationwide. There's a lot of momentum behind this company, and we hope to see you join. Cheers.
Thank you to all you for helping us make this decision. Now we're going to go tabulate the results, take a look at staff. Yes? Oh, yeah. Please do hit send as you wrap up. We're going to leave the poll open for another 5 minutes or so, and then we're going to cut it off so you can revise your votes if you need to now. We are going to go over to the awards reception next. That's going to be back in the other ballroom. It's set up now for the awards. Once the finals judges get finished deliberating, we'll start the program probably in the next 25 minutes or so. Looking at the time. So go ahead, go over. Bar's going to be open if it's not already. And we'll be joining and starting the award ceremony here shortly. Prize sponsors, remember to turn your prizes in. Thank you.